Hello, welcome to Show Boys. My name is Mike. We're here another Thursday, another episode, and it's going to be a fun one. At least I hope so. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, fellow host, Nick. How are you tonight, sir?
Doing great. How are you, Michael?
Yeah, your background looks a little blurry. Everything okay over there?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's just blurry. It's the internet. It's just standard internet. It's not fiber. So
Yeah.
not sharp
Interesting.
and clear.
Well, glad you're doing well. We're also joined by Dad. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Dad,
thank you for joining us.
I am well, and I've come with my crazy collection of old cassette tapes.
Yeah, they look great, and they must have some sort of magical properties because your hand just vanished right into them. That's crazy. But yes, Dad, aka Jeff, he's one that helps us out a lot behind the scenes. He does a lot of art stuff with Mr. Nick up there, and we're testing out a new role tonight, which is gonna be fun. So yeah, and he just finished Rings of Power, which is what we're talking about tonight. So no better time to join us. And we're also joined by a new face and friend and co-worker, Fran. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. I am just kind of shocked by the absurdly large blinds you have behind you.
Yes, these are my blinds.
You're either really small or the blinds are really big.
I think
it's a combination of both. Yes. Wait, I didn't have you guys believing that this was a fake background. I was
no, your hand is not disappearing.
Oh, that's true. I'm not disappearing.
Yeah, not like me.
Yeah. No. But thank you for joining us. You're filling the role tonight of the resident Lord of the Rings expert. When we were talking about doing this episode, Nick and Jeff were like, well, Nick was like, man, we really need someone to like counterbalance me and like that knows a lot about Lord of the Rings. Because I know a lot, but like not as much as I know about like Game of Thrones and House of Dragons. And I was like, I got the perfect person. And all I did was read them this one text that you sent me that was so dorky. And they're like, perfect. Let's make it happen.
Perfect.
That's about right.
But yeah, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And it looks like Joe is already out there. BioCiv's out there. Thanks guys for coming and hanging out. We appreciate it. Before we get into the topic at hand, we got to shout out our top tier patrons, Tim B, Yusuf H, and Joe C. Thank you guys so much for your continued support, and all of our other patrons. You guys are awesome, and we couldn't do what we do without you and your support. So thank you. If you're interested, you can head over to patreon.com/showboyspodcast and learn what Patreon is and what we offer for those who sign up. It's just a way to sign up to donate monthly. It's like a subscription to Showboys. There's different price points, and each tier of price comes with its own set of perks and benefits and whatnot. And you get things like exclusive patron only episodes once a month and other fun things like that. So go check it out, and if you can sign up, that would be awesome. We don't have any news tonight, at least I think there's lots of news floating about, none that particularly caught my attention or Nick's attention, but we are going to continue on with our what's watching and what's playing. So we'll have our guest go first, Fran. Like we were saying before we went live, one of our traditions when we have guests on is to ask them what they're watching. So what have you been watching lately?
So I currently prepping for this, rewatched part of Rings of Power. And then I am getting ready to rewatch 2 shows. I'm going to rewatch Jack Ryan. Oh, always. The Office is always on in the background. That's
she never stops watching The Office.
That and Parks and Rec and Friends and Big Bang Theory. Those are just always in the background somewhere. But to watch with intent, I'm going to rewatch Jack Ryan because prepping for season 3 to
Nice.
finally come out.
You got the Office tie-in there, though.
I do have the Office tie in there. I can tell you, though, it is a very different character.
I'm telling you, they need to have an episode where
Jim Ryan.
Yes.
Yes.
where Mr. Ryan just pranks the terrorists.
Yes.
He
Agreed.
just like puts all their guns in Jello and hides them in their compound.
that
That's
may be what's coming up, because this coming up season, it's about the Russians and they have a great sense of humor. So
Yes,
like
and
that
I
could
heard
just
they like
play
Jello.
right in.
So
exactly.
They love Jello.
Yes.
I like what you said though. Watch with intent. I think that's something that we might sneak into our vocabulary around here, our vernacular. Watch with
Absolutely.
intent.
I like it.
I mean, we have background noise. Like my husband and I were kind of guilty of our background noises, shows that we just basically have memorized. So to us, to actually sit down and watch something with intent is a little bit different than just to have something on in the background.
Yeah.
But yeah, so watching that, and then getting ready to rewatch Slow Horses on Apple because season 2 also is being released in December. So yes,
And
very excited.
There's a lot of good stuff on Apple, and I always forget to like open that app on the TV. But there's a lot of good shows on there.
There
It doesn't
are.
cost enough money for you to think about opening it as often.
Yeah, it's like $5. So like,
They need to bump it up, I guess.
yeah, it's like, oh crap, I'm paying $12.99 for this. I gotta open it.
Yep.
Classic MMO, like guilty sub. Like your sub, you have to
Yeah.
play it. Your sub,
Yep.
you gotta watch it.
Nice. So Jack Ryan. What was the something horses?
Slow Horses.
I was gonna say salty
Slow-
horses.
Slow
Salty.
Horses. They might be. They probably are a little salty. If you've
Yeah,
watched the
yeah.
show, they're probably a little salty about where they are. So it
Nice.
could work. Yeah.
Anything else in there?
Well, you're gonna love this, but it is becoming the end of the year, so Letterkenny. Gotta
right.
rewatch Letterkenny.
Yes. Oh, what a show. What a show. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing
Sure.
that. We'll make sure to turn that into a short. And no, I'm just kidding. Excuse me. Dad,
Yes.
have you been watching and or playing anything lately?
I have not been playing a whole lot, but I recently bought Hell as Others. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Sounds
It's a-
scary.
It's really scary. It's a top-down shooter where you go into a big city and there's other players playing too, but they're like these weird black creatures that you have to shoot, and you have to like loot everything and try to collect stuff and then turn it in for money. Like there's different things you got to do, but it's pretty fun. Very difficult.
This is a
I've
mobile
died-
game?
No, I got it on Steam.
Steam.
I think it's only like $10 right now.
Nice.
It's pretty fun. But that's all I've really been playing.
Nice.
Um,
Watching anything?
Yeah, that's taken up all my time. I binge watched the crap out of Rings of Power. And immediately after that, I started House of the Dragon. So I'm watching that.
And you've never watched Game of Thrones, so like this is your first entrance into the land of Westeros and Martin and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I did kind of start Game of Thrones back in the day. And then I heard that Sean Bean dies and I quit. I quit watching it.
Yes.
I
That's
couldn't do it
hilarious.
anymore. You know, he
You heard
always
that he dies. You
dies.
didn't even see him
Yes.
die?
I didn't want to see him die. You know,
Wow. you
I
just heard
couldn't.
it.
I couldn't let my heart go through that. you
It's a
know?
gut punch,
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Ugh.
Just go watch what was
It's a
that,
good
the end of
gut
season
punch,
1?
though.
Yeah.
Is it the
Yeah.
end of season 1? Yeah.
It's
So
not even
just
the
go
end.
watch our first episode
like
on
right-
Game of Thrones.
It's the penultimate episode, and they're
You
just
see
like,
how
yeah, you
sad
know
I
what?
am.
He dies in everything. I
Yeah.
couldn't.
He
I
does.
couldn't. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. Do it.
he even made an appearance in my leaf green Nuzlocke, and spoiler alert, he died. And he was a powerful little Firo, and he was like one of the strongest pokes on my team. And then classic Sean Bean, he died.
Rip.
Just ripped my heart out. He dies so soon, though. He really does.
He does. Like before all the great stuff happens, he's like, "Nope, I'm dead."
Yeah. Also, here's another great reason to sign up for our Patreon. Ugly Kid Joe Cross, top tier patron, says, yeah, and the foot massage. That's why I'm a top tier patron. So go check it out.
I did not know of these foot massages. I'm gonna
That's
have
your
one.
new role.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
That's what we're trying out. I'm currently
trying out
rubbing
tonight.
someone's feet
Yeah,
right now.
Joe's off camera.
You're welcome, Joe.
Oh, geez.
So
Nice.
I'm also watching Walking Dead. I picked that back up. They
From the
are on
beginning
their-
or catching up?
catching up, season 11. Yeah, I'm a fan.
They make the new guy give him. That's right. He gets it.
It's true.
Ah,
Some
yes.
smelly
yes.
feet.
Anything else?
And the Peripheral,
Peripheral.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
which
Yes,
is
yes.
beautiful.
How far are you in there? How many episodes? Are you caught up with the release cadence?
No, I again, because I've been watching Rings of Power, I haven't had time for anything. Even my own life, it's just absorbed all my time.
Yeah, because we had when was our little like chat that we had when we were like doing some behind the scenes stuff? At the time of that little meeting we had, you had not watched Rings of Power or or House of the Dragon, and we were jokingly like, "Yeah, just watch it by Thursday. You can
And
do
here I
it."
am.
Deal.
And he did.
I
He
did.
did. It was
I
crazy.
Took one for the team.
Yes. All right, Nick.
That's it.
Watching or playing anything this week?
Well, I'm still playing Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. That's just
Nice.
that's my not with intent gameplay. Like that's my hour
Very
before
nice.
bed. Like it's weird that that's my like before bed game because all you do is like power up and like beat people up. So it's not really calming experience.
Sleep level 9,000.
Yeah, over 9,000. I purchased a game on
Whoa.
sale.
Whoa.
Whoa. Yeah, look out.
What?
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh.
So that's just like the big open world RPG, just like on my home screen, like waiting to
You get it on
suck life away from
PlayStation?
me.
Nice.
Yes, sir. I look at my home screen on my PlayStation. There's just like a ton of just single player RPGs just like lined up there. Some like almost platinumed, some not started, some just in the middle. So guess that's gonna be my winter activity. So just RPGs.
Stocking up for a snowy day.
Yeah.
That's right. Just
You
gonna
gotta do it.
just start taking time off of work just to play games. Right?
Can I tell you a story?
Oh yeah, I know the story,
Okay.
but you may
Well,
retell it.
I'll tell you
have my
anyways.
permission.
One of the most fun vacations I ever took from work was it was
Nothing to do with your family.
no, it was like a year, it was right around the time that I was first married to Beck when we got married. Within like a year or two of us getting married, moved into our apartment, had my like PlayStation 3. Was it 3 at the time? I don't know. 3 or 4. No, it was
2.
3. It was 3. It was 3. Found out about this cool game, DC Universe Online. Had a friend that I played games with religiously. Like he was my best bud. Fortress Tiberius, if you're in our Discord.
Rip.
He went right before I think it was right before his semester started in school. I took the week off work and he came over to our apartment every day, Monday through Friday, from like 10 until Becca got home from work. And all we did was play DCUO. And yeah, platinum the game in like 5 days.
Day 3, you're
I've
like,
not-
Meg, this is your future. Like,
Yeah,
this is it.
Exactly. And I never played the game ever again.
I mean, you burned yourself
got-
out. It sounds like.
So, like seriously burnout, obviously playing the game nearly 40 hours in 1 week. And then I was like, yeah, that's never gonna play this again ever in my entire life. One of the most fun vacations I ever took.
Nice.
None of the beach vacations rank.
Nope.
No, because like half of them are impacted by a hurricane in one way or another because I'm super cheap and we go off season.
October.
No, we go prime hurricane season because I'm an idiot.
Like when they start in like what,
yeah.
April, May?
First week of
June?
September.
Oh,
Ah.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue, Nick.
yeah. So slight change to my what's watching. Still watching Handmaid's Tale. Still watching Andor, of course. That's repeats from last week. But what's new since then is With Intent. My wife and I, we are watching The Watcher on Netflix.
Ooh.
Nice
Watching The
little
Watcher.
psychological horror, I guess.
Mhm.
A little bit of, like, thriller. I'm not sure how to categorize it. It's weird. Maybe even like a little bit of a whodunit kind of mystery.
I mean, it's who
Whodunit?
based off of like
Whodunit.
a real event.
Yeah, New Jersey,
Like,
man. Don't live there.
Yeah, there's some cool videos. I became familiar with that story like a year or two ago through the weird YouTube rabbit holes I go down. So seeing that it was being made into a show is pretty interesting. Is it good?
Yeah, it's good. There are plot elements, like how the character react to things, that are like a little wonky. Maybe that's intentional because that's like how the story is really confusing and it's really ambiguous what's going on sometimes and like who really is who. So I think that's part of it, because sometimes I'm just like, that doesn't make sense because there's so much going on. So I don't know if it's just like lack of writing or it'll pay off later. So it's just something you got to keep watching. For some reason in this show, they do this thing where the characters like notice something off camera and they just take forever to like pan the camera and like progress to where you see what they see. And it's just like a lingering moment of just empty, like, just show me what they see already. Like,
Right.
end this pan. It's like a dead pan. Those are my gripes with it. But we'll see. It's definitely intriguing.
Yeah.
And my
Our boy
non-intentional.
Bobby Cannavale is in
I know
there.
I
I
so
love that
good.
guy.
I know. Well, I forget. It was that Hulu show. He was on the weird culty.
Oh
like,
yeah,
Rehab. The Nine Perfect Strangers. There we go.
Yep, that's it. He was also Mr. Robot. Shout out.
Yeah, shout out. He's in
I'll
a lot
never
of stuff.
forget. Never forget.
And my unintentional watch that I just started, technically a rewatch from a long time ago, but Dragon Ball, the first one.
Nice.
So that's a nice throwback, many years, 30 at this point.
Wow.
Old manga, old anime. So
Dang.
that covers it.
Well,
How about you, Michael?
nothing really new on what's watching. Just watched the newest Andor episode last night, and it was so good. So good. Holy crap.
So good.
This is like, I was thinking about this earlier. First off, this is, I've said it. I'm going to say it again. I'll continue to say it unless this like somehow falls off a cliff. It's the best Star Wars series that we've had. Period.
Really?
You cannot change my mind.
Acting wise, it has probably in one episode has like two of the best acted scenes in all of Star Wars.
So good.
Easily.
And I mean, if you love Rogue One, this is going to be like, just speak to your soul. It's amazing.
The goat Mothma.
Yeah. But I was thinking, I was like, it's so weird that like, it's cool, but also kind of weird that it feels like the series, all these different series kind of, I mean, obviously they exist in the same universe and in the same world, but they don't feel like they exist within the same universe and the same world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, due to the format, to use a term that we're going to be using in our review tonight, due to the format of Andor being like that espionage thriller, like very human story, like it's all human, right? It feels so disconnected from like the world hopping stuff we get in Mandalorian and Boba Fett with all the other alien races and the like campy nature Western style shows that those are, that it just doesn't even feel like it's in the same universe.
Yeah. And I guess
but
this
I
is
like that though, because there's
yeah.
variety. There's a little something for everyone.
Yeah, and this is slightly news just because I read it. Apparently, over at Disney, the rule is you either use the soundstage volume technology or you don't at all. You're either all or all out of it. You can't do like a hybrid approach. So, for whatever reason, why that's the rule, maybe it's a scheduling thing. But that's why we get a little bit of disparity in like the aesthetic of these shows, because Andor is completely non-volume on set locations or at location, versus Mandalorian, Boba, Obi-Wan were all 100% in the volume. So that has a big draw to the aesthetic. So Andor has that kind of classic Rogue One, the original trilogy vibe, where there's
it looks like you're watching a blockbuster movie.
Yeah,
it has the production quality of, you know, the big summer release, right, in theaters. So Andor, of course, and I'm trying. I made it through the first episode of Peripheral, but like I started the second one and I'm not getting hooked. There are some things that just have that cheesy, almost like basic cable like vibe to it, which is always off-putting for me. But I'm gonna push through, because I think the concept's great. It's like, after only seeing one episode and not ever seeing Ready Player One, to me it seems like an almost Black Mirror version of Ready Player One. Like it's a little more dark, a little more bleak, but it all revolves around living in this virtual reality thing. Hopefully it catches on. But 3 in with Peripheral, and it's so good. Nice. Well, I'll have to keep pushing through then.
As long as there's no angst, you're okay. You know, you can use
no angst. No angst. One of the main characters is the douchey boyfriend from Midsommar. And so all I can think about while I watch Peripheral is him being sewn into a bear carcass and then being burnt alive in a weird flower shed. Nice. I also got that going for me. Which, if you've never seen Midsommar, that probably sounds super weird. And if you have seen Midsommar, it was super weird. So, there's not much of a disconnect there. As for what's playing, nothing really new. I'm back on to I Am Setsuna. I returned my Switch games to the library, so back to plugging away with I Am Setsuna. And I guess, I mean, it counts because it's a game that I play, but we got Dungeons and Dragons next week. And
yes.
The last time we played was super fun, and where we left off was this next session on Sunday is going to be is it this Sunday? No,
I think it's
on the
next
13th.
Sunday.
Yeah, next Sunday. It's gonna be wild.
Looking at your desk calendar there, buddy.
I know my big old desk calendar. Bulbo Baggins holding it down for me back there. Yeah, it's been fun. I just scheduled a bunch of things to release on the website for like lore and stuff. So make sure you check out the website here on our D&D page. Go read up. get caught up and tune into the stream. Other than that, got nothing that I didn't mention last week. So Civ says, oh, he wasn't so douchey. He was in a bad spot, literally and
man.
figuratively.
Give him a break.
All right, now we got all that stuff out of the way. It's time to get into the real reason we're here, and that's Rings of Power. So I guess before we dig into the review itself, just get like general consensus. Like, what was your like general opinion of the show after completing it? Fran, please give us your thoughts.
So
So many
many mixed feelings. Yes, mixed feelings. Without getting too much into it, I guess I would say I guess they did okay with the materials they were given.
Licensed.
Yes.
Someone told me they didn't
exactly.
license like everything, so
No,
they were
so-
limited.
Are you ready for this? So they did a second. Sorry, it's just going to start coming out like
Yeah,
so
let
I
it
hope you're
pour.
good.
That's why you're here.
So
I need
We're
these
ready.
things cleared up. I need to know.
Amazon was only not given. They only received or purchased whatever rights to The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which covers the Fellowship, the Two Towers, and the Return of the King, and the appendices at the end of Return of the King. That's it. They were not given, or they did not receive rights for the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, the Children of Hurin, anything like that. So what they were actually given rights to was basically there's a not at all what they were covering. The appendices in the back give a very generalized summary, and then obviously in chapter 2 of book 2, which is actually, so the books, if you read the books, there's 2 books within each book, if that makes sense. So the Fellowship has book 1 and 2. So book 2 within the Fellowship, chapter 2, the Council of Elrond gives a brief history of the rings and stuff like that, but it's so brief, and that's what they're basing this whole show on.
Like a
Wow.
paragraph.
Yeah, basically, yeah, like a chapter, and one of the 6 appendices, or 2 of the 6 appendices, could technically cover it.
So I picture this board meeting with the Amazon people and whichever Tolkien that runs it all right now, and like he's trying to explain, like, okay, if you want to do this, this, and this, you're gonna need to buy this, that, and that. And they're just like, yeah, whatever. I got 250 million. Just whatever's best. They're like, but listen. And he's like, whatever. We'll just pay you. Okay, fine. If you won't listen, take these. And he's like, I got it. And there's like, oh, the writers are just like, crap. You sure we want to do the Second Age?
Right.
Should we just
Yeah.
redo the trilogy and make people really upset?
Reboot. No, I'm just kidding.
Right?
People would set the world ablaze.
Oh, that's the thing. Yeah. So
Oh,
like the
yeah.
writers were like, wait, we're doing a reboot. This material's for the reboot. I thought we were doing a Second Age. They're like, yeah. That stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the difference?
Idiots.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. That's why, in my opinion, even though I haven't seen House of the Dragon, there can't be any comparison, because you literally have the author right there, and you have rights to his encyclopedia. The Silmarillion is basically like the House of the Dragon, but for the world of Tolkien.
Yeah.
It's written a lot like a encyclopedia. You don't have that. So how? You know, so I have very mixed feelings. I feel like they did well with what
They had.
they kind of did well with what they had, but they also didn't have much. So
what have you read out of the books?
What have I
Because you rattled off like a bunch of other things that weren't
yes.
the main books.
So I have read the Silmarillion, the Hobbit, and the trilogy. So the actual Lord of the Rings. I have not read The Children of Hurin. I have not read Unfinished Tales. And I don't believe The Fall of Numenor has dropped yet. Believe that's being released like the next week or so, or it was already released. It was being released the beginning of November. I wasn't sure of the exact date though.
So they still writing stuff, or is this like just
Mhm.
out of the like archives?
I don't believe they are writing new stuff. The only people that I know of that I'm aware of that actually wrote anything was J.R.R. Tolkien, and then his son Christopher Tolkien came in and finished it up. But they obviously are both deceased at this point, so I
He had
think
lots
it's
of
just a
notes.
matter. He had lots of notes, so I think there's got to be like somebody, like some sort of like Tolkien title agent that's just like going through all of the documents and is like, oh, we can publish
Yeah.
this, or oh, we can work with this, or whatever, and that's what
This
they're
goes
releasing
here.
at this point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Do you
So,
think, unrelated to the show, do you think that we'll ever see any new written work that is like freshly written
No,
that's not out of the archives?
no,
Season
there's
3 of
such
Rings of Power. That's what it
yeah,
will be.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
We ran out.
Anything that came from the estate will not be new. There's a fierce loyalty there, and I don't think the family is willing to write anything new. Plus, like you said, there's so much. There's just notes and pages and unfinished. Literally, there are unfinished tales. He actually Tolkien, before he died, he started a series. He was toying with the idea of bringing about a new darkness about 400 years, I believe, after the events of the Return of the King, and because in the Silmarillion, Melkor Morgoth was never actually killed or vanquished. He was just put in a prison. There was talk that maybe the darkness he was talking about was Melkor having escaped his imprisonment. He had only written about like 2 or 3 chapters and then just was like, no, I'm going to leave it alone. And that wasn't even discovered until, after he died. So they're constantly finding new stuff. So like just in his archives. So there's no real reason to write anything new, number one. And number two, I think there's a high respect there that they wouldn't write anything new.
It's kind of like
It's
the
both,
Bible of high fantasy. It's like
Yes.
it was written and you can't really add to it.
No,
You'd have to make the new Tolkien Testament if you wanted to.
exactly.
want.
The newest.
The new Tolkien Testament.
Maybe that's
Oh my
that's what
gosh.
Amazon's going to end up doing. They're like, you know what?
Right?
Let's let
Listen,
the new.
this is found in Amazon chapter 2, verse 14. Whatever.
Oh my gosh.
He saw it was not good.
Yes.
Not good.
Not good.
Well, that's both like very cool and very not cool because obviously it's such a rich universe,
Yes.
rich world that has captivated our world, right? Everyone's attention. Everyone loves Lord of the Rings, and it stinks that it won't be built upon further, but it's also so cool that like there's like, yeah, we don't want it to like get ruined. Like
Right.
we don't want anything to happen with the goodness that we have. So I respect it. I'm a little sad, but I respect it. Let's switch it up. Nick, what did you think? Your general thoughts.
What did I think? I think obviously on the general stage of modern shows, right? All the shows we watch out there in the ether, it's good. It's a good show for sure. The issue is that it must stand against first one of the greatest like works of fiction, especially like high fantasy. It's like foundation of everything when it comes to that type of fiction. So that's tough. And then Peter Jackson, that guy, he happened to make like some ridiculous trilogy 20 years ago that is held in the most like prestigious arena of media. So I would say, all things considered, they did good with what they had, especially now knowing that they didn't have very much to go off of rights wise. That's always a tricky thing. So I they came out, I think, pretty late in the PR run that it was treated as like an adaptation, some sort of language, like they alluded to that idea. So I definitely watched it with that in mind. Still, that being said, there were things that I did not like about it. Not really much about like any changes they made to the story, but mostly when they do like weird. My biggest gripe is this person's dead, but it's like they're not dead unless you're really rechanging things. So it's kind of like an empty arc for the new people. It's a really empty arc for like people that know. So it's just like a weird ploy that you deploy in like like primetime TV, like I don't know, like SVU, whatever is out there, or 24, any of that stuff. Those are all really old shows. I haven't seen primetime TV in a long time, apparently. But just things like that. So it definitely had some of those qualities, like you were saying with Star Wars. Some of those shows, like they just kind of have campy or just not, blockbuster budget aesthetic to them, really. That's the issue. But it was a good show. I'm happy to have Lord of the Rings back out and new content. Obviously, aesthetically, like looking at the world that exists, that's great. Like none of that's like messed up. I love seeing Numenor. I like seeing Mordor. That's all good. You can't really mess it up in terms of like world building. It's just gonna be a matter of like the people moving about the world. That's and what they're saying and how they're written. That's most of the issues. But yeah.
Nice. Jeff, coming fresh off of watching.
Fresh.
What do you think?
Well, I did enjoy it. I also feel like, and I said this before we were live, like I shut off my critical thinking and pretend I'm 12 and I could enjoy the show for what it is and the story that they're trying to tell. That versus what I've seen from the trilogy, like it doesn't compare. Like there are some really iconic moments from those movies that I just amazing. Like the cinematography of those movies were phenomenal. And I feel like Rings of Power, they were trying to do that. They were trying to create, I was thinking of the word regurgitate what's already been done.
Yeah.
There were definitely parts that I was like, this sucks. But overall, I did enjoy the journey. There were a few aspects of it, like the relationships with some of the characters. I really enjoyed it, but like I said, it feels like it's kind of been done already with the trilogy. Like, and now I get they didn't really have a whole lot to work with. But, if I can just look at it as I'm watching a show, kind of turn everything off. Still watching it with intent, though. I will probably continue to watch it. I'm just, I don't know. It's a mixed feelings, a mixed bag of emotions when it comes to this show. Like
There's a high flight. You're saying there's a high flight risk.
Yeah, like
probably for viewers. Like we're all probably going to make it
absolutely.
to season 2, but if like halfway through season 2, like stuff doesn't start like improving,
yeah,
or like really kind of shifting, it could be a potential flight risk for a lot of us.
Yeah, I kind of feel like a lot of people are kind of wrestling with that already after watching this season. But no, I'll stick around. I'll see what they got.
Nice.
Hopefully they improve.
Perfect. Yeah, I think without getting too specific, because we broke out a bunch of categories to go through with the review, and we're gonna give scores, and you'll have the official Showboys rating for each category and all that by the end of the episode. But just initial thoughts. It was fun at times, frustrating and annoying at times.
Cringy at times.
Yes, maybe not annoying. Maybe annoying is the wrong word. Cringy is the better word. It was always beautiful, though.
Yes.
One of the most visually stunning things I've seen on TV, movie or show. It looked fantastic. And it was fun to be back in that world again. Even though it does feel disconnected in a way. Maybe it's just because I'm not like a huge Lord of the Rings nerd. Never read any of the books. Like, I enjoyed the trilogy when it was out. I always say like at least once a year that I like, and I say and I want to rewatch the trilogy, but then I never do. So maybe that's why it feels disconnected, because it's been so long. But like, and maybe it's like the visual fidelity, like, also makes it feel disconnected, because it's so. I mean, how long's it been since the last movie came out? Would you say 20 years?
20 years since like the first one. It was like 2002, 2003, 2004, I do believe.
Okay, yeah. So we're getting close. I mean, that's a long time for technology to develop and improve. So, but yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start, but towards the end of the season, I was like every night watching an episode. I am anxious to see what comes. But I definitely have some gripes, that's for sure. So without further ado, let's just get right into the first category here, which is, what is it? What do we got? Aesthetic. So perfect little segue there. So again, like I was saying, this show is gorgeous. Like,
so good.
the visual effects, so good. The use of colors, like, it was bright and popped when it needed to, and when it didn't need to, like, those colors were sucked off the screen, and it was just like such a great contrast to go between the elven areas and the into the mines, and then into the wilderness with the Harfoots. Like, it was so cool. I loved the return to practical effects when able to. The thing that I hated about the Hobbit movies was everything was CGI except for like the 5 actors, right? Or whoever like the actual people were. And the thing that I loved about Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, is the use of practical effects with all of the orcs and the Uruk-hai and all those, like, just
This is New
dudes and,
Zealand.
like, yeah, like,
Yes.
like you could tell they were walking on real ground and surrounded by real trees and mountains, and like
Lots of helicopter shots.
yes. And they returned to that. Like, I loved the orcs being people, like, in prosthetics. Like, that's awesome. There were a few like little missteps with it, as like breathtaking as each scene was, like, particularly when they had the wargs or the wolves or whatever you want to call them. I thought those were kind of like shoddy at best, like, did not really look on the same level as everything else in the show. But other than that, I would say visually it's like, I'm having difficulty finding more adjectives to describe how much I loved the visuals of this. So for me, out of 5, we're going to rank all these categories out of 5. We'll each give our personal rating, and then we'll kind of like come up with an average between us, and that'll be our final score for each category here. So out of 5, I'm gonna give this a 4.5. I would have given it a 5 if it wasn't for like those wargs or wolves. What are they called? Wargs? Am I right?
Wargs.
Yes, the wargs. They look terrible. Other than that, like nearly perfect for me. What about you, Nick? We'll go in reverse order.
Yeah, no, I'll echo a lot of the things you said. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. World looks great. They even did, multiple locations very well. Like it wasn't like one area looked really good and other ones like didn't fit. Like everything really kind of fits together well. The fact that you could go from a place like Numenor, which is very disconnected from Middle Earth, and then even on the edge of the map, right when they're headed on the ship there in the early episodes. What's that land called? This is the lands to the west. Valinor, yeah. Like even that was like convincing to me. Like even though it was just kind of like a bright light and they were going there, like that just felt convincing and good. Now where I did have some issues is where it did step toward that Hobbit-esque feeling, where maybe things felt a little bit too poppy, right? A little too like sharp in the world. Like definitely like some of the Harfoot scenes and like setups, and even the village, the Southlands like village with that. Like while it looked good, like there's something too vibrant maybe with it. So while maybe it's like over polish, it's like overly looking good, where it's like maybe we could like natural it down a bit. Like let's just have it look like it's like a plain old village. But a lot of that was to kind of convey that kind of like real fantasy-esque nature. And I think some of that with like the Harfoots is also like the scaling, right? Because grass seem really tall because they're super short. So we have to like fit that in. So maybe like some of the scaling is what I'm kind of getting at. It just felt
the blinds seem really big because
yeah.
She's a hobbit.
Exactly.
Fran is actually a hobbit.
I am. I am.
Me too.
Man, aren't you all short? Like base Mike's pretty short too.
Mike's not that short.
Oh, you're that short.
Thanks, Jeff. But
He's a giant, man.
Oh, jeez.
Everyone's a giant in my eyes. Even
I guarantee you, I'm not.
You guys are probably the same size. But yeah, just not completely like even across the board. So I'll give it a good like 4.5 on the aesthetic overall.
Solid. Hey, that's a great score.
Yeah, 4.5 is good. I almost gave it a 4, but it did a great job. I think I really like the elven areas and things like that. I like that more than the dwarf stuff. The dwarf stuff is like where I kind of want to give it a 4 because that, while it was impressive, it did feel a little World of Warcrafty for me. Like it definitely got a little like dumbed down when they got into there. Forged. Yeah, like it's just like a lot of rock, nothing really too crazy. Whereas like Moria is like fantastic in the trilogy.
Well, I mean, they did have like waterfalls and like plant life down there, which I thought was really interesting and was not really expecting.
And I think that's where like that to me just feels too video gamey.
I see.
Like it steps me out of it a little bit. Whereas like Moria is this like used to be lived in like shithole now. That's scary and spooky. So it's just things like that. Like some of it felt a little too fake at times because they're portraying these very high fantasy areas. So it's not their fault, but comparatively, that's just where it steps out of itself a little bit in my mind. So
nice.
We'll give it a 4.5 though. It looks good.
Joe says back to the blinds, full circle. That's right. That's how I do it. Just wait. There'll probably be another one somewhere in there. We're only at 50 minutes, guys. We still got like 2 hours. There will be plenty of blind jokes before we. Oh, and out of context, that's going to sound really terrible. All right, so Nick gave it a 4.5. Dad, I'm just going to always call you Dad, and I don't care how weird that feels.
That's fine. I am kind of like your father.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Very smooth transition there. That's going to be shorted.
So, yep, it's written down. So, like what you said, Mike, this was like probably the best looking stuff I've seen in movies or TV shows. Very vibrant, very detailed. I remember in Lord of the Rings when they did the one city. I'm terrible with names, but they used like models of everything to display it, which was freaking. Yes.
The big white city.
Yes.
Minister.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, like just the detail, and they just put so much into it, and it looked amazing. I loved Numenor. Just like that was the island kingdom, correct?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it so good. And I liked the dreams where it was getting like flooded and everything
with the tsunami.
Oh,
just
I thought that was real, by the way. I thought that was actually happening. I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Got me.
No good. Yeah, I was very impressed with just the way it looked. I was in awe for sure. I even liked when Mordor became Mordor. You know, it was just really cool. You know, that transition of everything.
Even pre-Mordor is awesome. Like, I love seeing that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Like, let's do it. Make this land dark.
Yeah. Make it dark. And even when like the ash fell over everyone, you know, that was really cool. I think I'll also
yeah.
I'll give it a
great. I'll give it a 1.
I'll give it a solid 1.5. I'm kidding.
Really gonna bring the average down.
I'm gonna give it a 4.5.
Boom. Right, well, Fran, I feel like if you don't, then we're just gonna kick you off the show.
I'm not cheating. You can literally see 4.5.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Boom.
Boom.
All right.
So there you
let's
go.
hear it. Why?
So this is going to be pretty interesting because I am in direct contrast with Nick. So I gave it a 4.5. Number one, it was beautiful. Having read the books and hearing, like, you know, reading how he described it and then to see it, especially Valinor with the 2 trees, and they go into so much detail in the books about how they were silver and gold, and they were the light. There was no sun. And to see those, like, just that first shot right there in the first episode, I was like, oh wow, this is breathtaking. I thought all of them were very well done. All the settings, everything was very well done. I agree with the wargs too. I feel like I'm going to kind of regurgitate some of the stuff that you guys said just because I'm last, but I agree. I thought the wargs in the trilogy were perfect. They were, that's exactly what I pictured when I was reading it. And then to have that there, I was like, yes. And I know they worked, again, I'm going to go into like the legal and the rights and the background and stuff a little bit. But they were working within the same workshop for this season. Mm-hmm. I know they have moved, for season 2, but I wasn't sure what all they had rights to and had access to, but I wish they could have made them that long horse type of thing really, made me feel like it was less than, less than that. Like I just loved the big beast hair back of the trilogy, and I didn't get that. So I did think that Eregion and Lindor were pretty. The Elven lands, they did that well. To me, though, they both felt similar, almost a little too similar. Like I liked them and they were fitting to elves, but Lindor was like where the High King lived. Like I would have liked to have seen more than just yellow trees in the background, which I get like in the storyline, like later on, you know, they talk about how it's like dying and whatever, but it was where the High King of the elves lived. Like I wanted to see more than cliffs and trees. I wanted to see some of the architecture and stuff like that. And I felt like I kind of missed that. And then even with Eregion, so Celebrimbor is like the smith of the day. Like he's the greatest smith in that day. He's a direct descendant of Finrod, who made the Silmarils, who was the greatest elven smith, like of all time, arguably. And here he's like making this like, ooh, like covered in tents and like this little like pulley system type of workshop. And I expected something so much grander.
They did build it in a month, right? Isn't that what happened in the
I need
show?
it by springtime, yeah. And
Yeah.
the timeline's so warped, I can't tell exactly how long it took.
Yeah.
But it should have taken longer. They should have put more effort into it. But yeah, so that's kind of, they were beautiful, but I wish that they would have done a little bit more with those. But I absolutely loved Moria. I thought the attention to detail was amazing. Like the fact that they had like the mirrors and the reflection of the light, so that they explained logically how they were able to have trees and able to have, you know, green. Like, I mean, that's where they live. They don't go outside. So they show how this became an absolute sanctuary for them. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was absolutely amazing. I mean, yes, it was over the top, but it kind of had to be, like you said. So I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, I would say the warg thing that annoyed me wasn't even like that they looked different, like they were built different than the trilogy. It's just the CGI was so not cohesive with what was going on that they looked very video gamey, and I was oh, this does not look good.
Ew, gamey wargs, icky.
Yeah. And quick shout out to Benjamin Walker, by the way, who is the actor who played King Gil-galad. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
He was in, he's in quite a few things, but I just recently watched, this is going to sound so dumb, but Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Yes, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. And he plays Abraham Lincoln. And surprisingly, that movie is very fun and very enjoyable, and he is awesome in it. You should go watch it. It's on Prime Video. Anyways, so what are we on now? We got characters. So of course we all scored at 4.5. So we got the final score for aesthetics, 4.5. So moving on, we're gonna jump into the character section here. So again, I'll just kick it off and then we'll go in reverse order. We'll let Fran go and then we'll go counterclockwise. So characters. So in this, are we talking like acting, like casting, or like the characters that are included from like the lore? Like where exactly do you want to go with this, Nick?
Well, out of all the things, I say, yeah, all those things. Anything to do with characters has to go in here.
Out of all the things, just do all the things.
Yeah, because it doesn't fit in anywhere else. So this is really anytime there anything
catch
to do
all
with like
about
a person
anyone
on
that's
screen.
in the show. Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
yeah, wherever you want to, whatever like stood out the most to you. because you can just be like, oh, the acting was great, but the writing sucked, or they look terrible.
Yeah, I think we'll cover writing when we get to story, which is the next one.
Yeah, true. Yep.
But yeah, okay, so oh boy. I actually did not like most of the characters. I thought they were this is the cringe, the annoying. This will be my grief section.
This is the section where angst can never show up, and that's Mike's.
Oh god, and that's
worst
all. That's literally all. Any elven character except for Elrond. Elrond.
Go.
Around.
Around.
Yeah, that is just full of brooding, dark but not dark elves.
How would you
they're
feel
not
if you
dark
were
elves, but
if you lived for thousands of years? Wouldn't you be a little brooding about everything?
Yes,
no.
you would be.
Oh, I would
You'd
be
be
like
so-
Elrond.
You'd be so angsty.
You've been alive for like 30, and you're so brooding. Try
so true.
3,000.
That is true. That's true.
Mhm.
So I'll start with Galadriel. So she's played by Morfydd Clark. Morfydd Clark.
Morpheus.
I mean, her first name is Morfydd. How do you say that?
Morpheus.
Morpheus Clark.
Going with
Um,
Morpheus.
Now the thing is, she's been in a few movies here, and most recently she was in Saint Maud, which is a horror movie, a small horror movie, but within the horror community, it is like heralded as like an amazing horror movie. And she plays Maud in Saint Maud, so she's like the main character there. And while I haven't seen it, I've watched a lot of videos talking about like all these horror movies you should see, and this one always makes the list, and the character Maud always is the reason why. So like, she has chops, right? She's a good actress, but man, she's just so dang angsty in this show. Like, I get it, like she knows the orcs are still out there, right? She knows that the enemy is still a threat, but like, holy crap, can you just like just take it down a notch for like one scene in this dang show?
She's the Karen of Middle Earth.
Oh, she is a huge Karen.
She's the Karen.
I thought Halbrand was interesting until we got towards the end. Honestly,
What's that mean? Maybe that's a writing story thing you can tell us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it has to do with the story, but then like, I don't know, just we'll get to it in the story, I guess.
I know what you're saying.
I really liked The Stranger, and I thought the actor Daniel Wayman did a good job playing like a befuddled giant next to these hobbits trying to relearn who he is and why he is where he is. And that brings me to like the Harfoots and the hobbits, and like at first I was kind of like put off by this story arc, but Poppy and Nori were like delightful and just very fun, and I loved all of the Harfoot scenes. I thought they were like, I don't know, just, I mean, it's such a dramatic shift. It's like the exact opposite of the broody, angsty elves. We have the like cheery and poppy hobbits over here. So I thought the actress who plays Nori did an excellent job. I loved Elrond. I loved his relationship with Durin. All of those scenes were super cool, like very well acted. I thought like the chemistry of those two characters, like so great. And my eyes had to be glued to the screen whenever they were both in the same scene. Other than that, nothing really jumped out. Even with all those positive things, I think I'm just like kind of outside of Elrond and Durin, like I'm just talking everything up. Like I enjoyed it, but nothing like is all that memorable except for Elrond and Durin. Like they carried this character wise for me. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to give this like
0.5.
2.5, maybe.
Oh, it's better than I thought you were gonna land.
Yeah, I got to give it a 2.5. Like I was largely. Who's the dude in Numenor, the captain, the sailor guy who like knows
Elendo?
Yes, he
Yep.
was cool. I liked his character. I thought he was acted very well. Other than that, like, yeah, still 2.5. It doesn't do that character doesn't do anything to raise my rating, but I wanted to note that I liked him. So Fran,
I also have a 2.5.
are you in my brain?
You know, when you talk together with work all day and you're like, hey, how did this, and then you just bounce.
That's true.
I think eventually we're just gonna kind of
Valid point. Valid point.
It is what it is. So yeah, Galadriel, not a fan. I think I've never seen the actress in anything else.
Okay, before you get into it too much, can I ask you something?
Sure.
As a woman,
like,
did it seem like I don't know, she seemed like the strong independent woman of this show. At least that's what I think that's what they're aiming for. That's what it came across as, at least to me. Which there's nothing wrong with that. But as a woman, did you like feel that?
Taking Chad's
did you
spot
like
on the
that?
podcast right now?
No.
Am I misreading it? Yeah, and someone
No.
has to fill in for Chad as the just the woman hater apparently on the podcast. But like, did that do anything for you?
It did do something for me, but not a good thing. So yes, clearly I am a woman. But I'm very
Clear that up
objective.
for us.
You're very welcome. Yes, I do identify as a woman, but no, like okay, so here's the deal. Again, sorry that it's just gonna come out like word vomit.
Here's
It
all the
is.
reasons Fran hates women.
No, not at all. Not at all. Galadriel was a strong, wonderful, independent, wise woman and character. And they took her and they made her just your like current day, like feminist, like I can do anything a man can do, and I'm gonna do it better than you. I'm gonna beat you all in this sword fighting. She never actually fought in wars. The one that she did, we actually see in The Hobbit. It wasn't actually done in the books. It's kind of told in the background, but she didn't even need a sword because she had her ring of power. She was not a warrior. She did not feel the need to avenge her brother. She wasn't even around when she had 3 brothers, by the way, not just one, and all 3 of them were killed. 2 were killed in the same battle, and 1 was killed 10 years later. Finrod was killed 10 years after, not Finrod, Fingolfin, I'm sorry. They all sound the same after a
I
while.
can't believe you got that messed up.
I know, right? Gosh, I'm so sorry. But what she was very wise. It does say, though, again, they don't have access to this, but she was a very strong and brawny, broad, whatever you want to call it. She was very tall and very built. They go over that in the Silmarillion. But they talk about her wisdom. And I feel like we don't get to see that until after Mordor is created. It's almost like this shift happened. And I think what they were trying to do is I think they were trying to create a character arc for her, but I don't think that they did that very well. And I know that goes more into the writing, but I didn't like how the character was just go, 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 like kill everything, kill all the orcs, do all the things.
Yeah.
And then all of a
With
sudden,
big
like
old frown on her face the entire time.
Like then all of a sudden she's like, well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions, now I'm going to just spew wisdom. And it's like, There was no real
Nothing led to that.
no, nothing led to that other than just, the blow up of the volcano. And it was, I get where they were trying to go with it, but they didn't need to. They could have shown her in such a different and better way.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of 50-50. I didn't really like that character. I spent way too much time on her. Elrond, I thought was absolutely amazing. I loved him in Durin. I love Disa. Disa was just hilarious and wonderful and like heartwarming and
Yeah.
yes, like I want to be a housewife
Yes,
like
queen.
Disa. She was amazing. Yes.
I just want to mention on the point of her,
Yes.
the run for this show made it seem like she was like this main character,
super
and like
integral part
people
of the
really
show.
dialed in on that for all the wrong reasons, and that was like a big thing. But then I watched the show, I'm like, so all that was really for nothing because she's really just like a background character or supporting character. Like she's not like, yeah, she's a queen of a place and is an important character, but I don't know, like all that hoopla at the beginning was just
She's in like
for
5
what?
scenes.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
shout out to the actor who played Elrond, also plays young Ned Stark.
Yes.
Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
Rip full circle.
Yep.
Yeah. On that note as well, because I believe again, I have not seen Game of Thrones, but my husband told me I was a huge fan of the actor who played Adar, the original Uruk, the first Orc, whatever you want to call him. I thought he did amazing.
Yeah.
I was very impressed by him. Again, this goes to the writing. I wasn't a huge fan of some of the stuff later on, but his portrayal was, and the way they chose to do his appearance, he wasn't fully an orc. He was kind of he was enough that he bled black. Like the little details like that they knew to put in, I thought was awesome.
Good night.
So, hi, Becca.
Hey, Fran said hi. She said hi, Fran.
Yay. But yeah, so those were my highlights. Kinda like you
He
said.
was in Game of Thrones, right? Benjen?
I don't know what character.
Oh, is it Benjen?
Benjen?
Benjen was so much taller.
I don't know.
Yeah, Benjen Stark.
Wow.
There you go. Yeah. So I thought he did very good. I also really liked Arondir.
Yes.
He was
Yeah, he's
another
pretty cool.
very, very solid character. And I know
Also very brooding.
he's new, obviously they had to add him in, but I think he just fit right in and fit the Elven warrior character that they've established over the last 20 years. And I really liked him.
Yeah, I thought he was an interesting character.
Yeah. Like you said, though, everybody else kind of.
Yeah, they kind of just sucked.
Yeah. Yeah. I was kind of 50-50 actually about Elendil.
Yeah.
There were times that I thought he was great, and then he cried over his son, and I was like, ooh, that I could do a better, like, not to sound mean, but like he's like and that's it. And I was like, okay. Like if you compare that to like Theoden when his son died and he buried his son, there was like that, like you felt it
so
in your
sad.
gut. He was like that. I'm sorry. That's how a parent buries a child, like that, not this. For like, it was awkward, and like the shot lasted too long. That kind of like
Just gonna have this zoom in slowly on your face for 45 seconds.
You should. Yes.
All right. Well, what about you, Dad? What say you?
Well, I would.
Joe's first. He says, "Yes, tell us how you feel as a woman." He also said it did seem like she was a little too gung ho for quite some time. Sure, talking about Galadriel still.
Maybe me. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little gung ho. We'll see.
Yeah,
I got
also
my
Fran.
notes.
Yes, also Fran.
My scroll.
Going a little
That's
too crazy
right.
over there. But anyway, sorry, Dad. Go ahead, continue.
Where to start?
He's praying. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Please help me with
the
the word.
Help
new
this
Tolkien
score.
Testament.
Please help this score. So Galadriel. She was, I think the best thing she had going for was she was attractive. And she was very strong. So
I do remember you saying she can brood her angst all she wants.
yeah, she man, she could, yeah. I would probably have elf babies with her. I can say that, it's okay.
Yeah, because I mean, you are an elf in D&D, so like, yeah, you're totally.
But you're actually a
totally allowed
hobbit.
to- Yeah, it's weird. Don't ask.
it'd be very okay. Moving on.
Yes, Dad. Tell us how you feel as a man. Dig that hole, brother. He also says, "Oh, she did bring notes. Impressive. But does she want to play D&D?" Well, I don't know about that. I mean, she is a dork. I don't know if she's that level of dorky though.
She is.
I think she is.
That looks actually. Maybe she has played D&D.
I have not. No, I only know what I have watched on Big Bang Theory.
Hmm.
That's my extent of it.
Rip.
Well, it's very fun.
It is very fun.
And Mike and I have not played before, so it's
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's our
it's
first
awesome.
time.
I'm
It's
still
our
waiting
first
for
time.
Dad to articulate his thoughts about characters on this show.
Okay, let me just say my
Who
favorite.
wasn't attractive to you in these characters?
Oh, sure, attractive.
I don't think there was anyone else that wasn't attractive.
So everyone was attractive.
Yeah, dude.
I will say my favorite character was Elrond. I don't know why. He just carried himself like a good elf man
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, he had some great charisma about him.
And I will say that my favorite part about the show, which was probably writing, but his relationship with Durin
Hmm.
was probably one of my favorite parts of the whole show. I did enjoy Arendir, however you say his name, and the woman and her son. That whole kind of thing was cool. Yeah, but none of the other characters really popped out at me. Although I did have a feeling that Nori and Poppy, they felt a lot like Frodo and Sam from Lord of the Rings. I don't know how you guys felt about that, but
Is that good?
I felt like that's what they were trying to do.
they were trying.
That's definitely what they were trying to do.
I saw that they were trying to do that, but I wasn't convinced. I'm like, you guys are just trying to do what's already been done. I don't think it's working as well. I mean, I think it was okay, but it just wasn't really working the way they wanted it to. That's really it. I thought the stranger was cool. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 2.
Ooh,
All right, Nick.
ouchie. I'll say with the character problems. The folk in the white cloaks, they can take a hike.
Oh, terrible.
But the three
The
Eminem
Mystic.
and
Cultist
his
ladies?
friends, female
three-
Eminem and her
Yes.
friends. That was hard. That was tricky. Even
That was cringe.
That was
that was cringe.
the
right?
most random thing I've ever seen implanted in a show.
And I think that's where I draw some of the aesthetic negativity too, like the aesthetic of the scenes they were in, and just even like their magic, like it looked good, but it just was also out of place. Whereas you look at something like, is it no, in the Hobbit, in the Hobbit trilogy, when they do the parts that are not in the Hobbit, when Gandalf's like went to battle Goldor, was it Goldor that he went to, and they did like the wizard
Dumbledore.
fight,
Yes.
looks so freaking good.
Yes.
And we had a chance to have like a wizard fight, and it was like, yeah, it was weird. It was very weird.
See, look, even
and-
her cup is huge.
Wow.
Bigger than her head. But yeah, so they were a problem for me for sure, and they those three alone deduct a lot of points really quickly. Meanwhile, I really did like the dwarves overall, as just like how they were presented. The initial like hammer off was awesome.
Yes.
Between Elrond
That
and
was
his
fun.
bro.
I like
And just like
the-
the energy in that room, like you just felt so
Mhm.
dwarven in there.
like their the guards like suits of armor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really cool.
Those are actually very true to the books as well, and they were one of my favorite parts. Their masks that even covered the beard.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were supposed to be so strong that they would not melt and protect them from dragon fire.
Nice.
Gotta have it.
Yes,
That's
you
pretty
gotta have
rad.
it. Yeah, and I love that they like opened. Yes,
Yeah.
those things were awesome.
Close them. Drag him. So yeah, and this is kind of bleeding between aesthetic and that, but like obviously outfits, all that stuff around the characters all looked really good. And overall, I mean, I liked Galadriel. I liked her purposeful angst, as Mike would call as her angst, but I felt it had
Angst
purpose.
with intent.
Intentful angst.
Yes.
And I still want to lean on the fact that like they live for thousands of years, so 3 months or whatever the timeline is, it's unknown, is essentially like a bad day in their lives. So like she's just in an angsty day, even a week, right? It's not
It's so
odd
true.
for us to go a week in like a full brood. So for her to go whatever the timeline of this season was in full brood, that's fine. I'm fine with it. I was okay with it. Though I think more of my gripes with her will fall onto like the writing and like the stuff around that. Not to bleed into there. The orc, all the orcs, like they were all awesome. Forget his name, but the main one, the Uruk, the first Uruk, if you will.
Old Uncle Benjamin.
Yeah.
Adar.
Yeah, Adar.
I don't.
He was cool. A lot of the villagers were cool too, in terms of how they set all that up. Even though the Southlands was a little bit of a like these people kind of like without a purpose. They're just your general villagers that just kind of farm and just like live life out. That was all good. Obviously, Elrond, stellar, absolutely stellar. That is the tightest thing to like the trilogy that exists in this show, in my mind, outside of the world itself and the aesthetic. Is Elrond just seems true to Elrond, period. That was something they were like, hey, we can get this right because we got all that. So I was really impressed with how well that was still intact. Other characters, the Numenorians, I love them. Even like the old king up in there.
Oh yeah.
That was cool. It was a little. I think because that's what I like about House of the Dragon. They used to have that palace intrigue thing going on. And generally, all the characters in like Numenor were pretty cool, and I like the like Smith, the Smith Guild, if you will.
Oh yeah.
That crew, and Hellbrand, how he interacted with them. Hellbrand, I think, from beginning to end, is done well for how he's written. And he just has that very like mysterious, like I'm just a normal guy, but am I? So his interactions with Galadriel, all that. So I'd like to give it a 3 on the characters. I'll be the upswing on this.
Interesting. Very very interesting. Yeah, so that puts us out to a final score of 2.5.
It would have got a 4 if there were some Ents, right? The tree people.
Oh, that would,
Yeah.
Yeah, if we had like some more tree beards up in there, like would have been a
Oh,
4
yeah.
because those are some
Yep.
characters right there. But we just got
Yeah.
orcs and elves and humans. We've seen all
yeah.
that. Good orcs
Um,
though. Good orcs. Can't stress that enough.
Yes.
Especially with their whole character arc of like we're building these trench tunnels and we got to stay out of the sunlight.
Yeah.
That was very well emphasized.
I liked to your point about the Southland villagers, like other than I'm gonna get a lot of flack because it's another female character, but the lady from the Southlands who just magically, like in the blink of an eye, though she did absolutely nothing, became like the de facto leader of this village.
She decapitated the orc. Hello.
I
Yeah, come on,
mean,
bro.
she was
Nobody else
leading this
believed her.
village
That's
like
a big
Nobody else
deal.
believed her.
But-
before
They were
that
like,
happened.
no, and then she goes and just puts the head on there, like, what now? Like, we're this is where we're
But
going.
like they walk up even before they go into like the tower, they're like, "Oh, random lady who is being ordered around by the tavern keep to go like fill
Yeah.
water. Tell us what we must do to survive. Everyone is waiting with bated breath to hear your instruction."
Because she was a healer.
I would say it'd work more for me if they didn't like just a little bit build up the whole like, oh, she's a harlot for that elf. You know what I mean? Like that whole thing, like the
That's true.
forbidden love thing.
Yes.
So like we did go from like she like, she likes elves, like that whole village vibe. And then all of a sudden, we're gonna get over that. And
Yeah.
she's like our de
Um,
facto leader.
Yeah.
That was weird.
with the exception of her, like I think like the dude who ran the tavern was like a real scumbag and acted very well. Like all the
Yes.
people for being like the scumbags were like real scummy, and like I thought it was really cool. And I mean those are like so minor of characters, like they're not even like numbered, right? They're not supporting characters, they're not tertiary characters, they're just like a step above extras. But they sold that village of just random folk in the middle of nowhere that some of them still had their allegiance to, I forget what the bad guy's name is.
Morgoth.
Yeah, his defection, that part of his character was really convincing to me. How like he's
Yes.
like, everyone, we're just going to go with them. He's been kind of preaching it the whole time, but he's like, here's my chance. Like, we are going to defect, if you will, or go serve our rightful people. And
Mhm.
he's just like, yeah, I'm totally cool with just being like a peasant here, and I serve you.
Yeah.
And like, yes, wear this orc armor and go die.
Yes. Yeah, his turn too, like you're saying, it was very well done. So we landed on 2.5 for that. So next we're moving into story. So where we were kind of talking about some of the writing playing into these characters, this is where the crossover will come. So we'll talk about the story we were presented with, and then other writing things like some of the characters and motivations and pacing and stuff like that. So like I said, I'm not a big Lord of the Rings nerd, so everything in this series brand new, first time hearing of any of this crap. So I had zero expectations other than they spent like $500 million on this show, just about. So I expected it to be of high quality Lord of the Rings content.
Should be all right.
So the story that was presented, I think it was okay. I don't think the pacing was terrible, but I do think there were some massive leaps made with certain characters, like I don't know what's her name, the character we were just talking about, who became
Galadriel?
like the
Oh.
leader of the Southland village.
Bronwyn.
Yes. Or I liked Halbrand from the start, right? His like weird, like kind of a jerk, doesn't really want to like anything to do with Galadriel, but then like kind of helps Galadriel. Like I thought that was all cool. I hated, again, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the Southland village is just so desperate for leadership and direction. They'll just like bend the knee to anyone because, well, first, the fact that the Numenor army rode in just in the nick of time to save this village.
They knew where to
Magically
go,
knew
too.
exactly where this village that is like the size of like a Wendy's in the middle of the Southlands. Like they just magically knew exactly where to go and save them in the nick of time. But afterwards,
Fudge.
Halbrand is like hailed the king of the Southlands. He didn't do anything like that. He did nothing like out of the ordinary.
He's the
this
guy
battle.
with the elf. Must be important.
He didn't do. He didn't like take out the orc leader. He didn't like make some ridiculous like saving heroic thing. He was just on his horse like everyone else in the Numenor army. They
No
beat
speech.
the orcs, and then no speech. The queen
that
of
guy.
Numenor is like, "This is your new king," and they're like, "Yes, finally." Who is this guy? Like they don't know this guy. Like there's no setup. Nothing led up to that. That was probably the thing that made me the most angry in this season was that.
King of
And
what?
I think I
Village,
immediately
too?
told Fran about it, I think. But I was just like, this is so stupid. Like, I can get past all the angst and the brooding and all that stuff, but this was literally the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll let you guys carry this portion more because I know, like, Fran, you specifically probably have a lot to say about story, and I'm sure Nick, right up there with you with all of his dorky knowledge about Lord of the Rings. For me, I'll just give it a 3, right in the middle. Like there was enough good to keep me interested and entertained, but enough dumb moments like Halbrand and this other lady in the Southlands to just make me pull my already short hair out. 3 for me.
Sounds like a 2.5, but whatever.
It does sound like a
Wow,
2.5.
dude. Okay. Did you go first for characters, Nick, or did Fran go?
You went first all the time.
No. I mean, like after me.
Fran did.
I'm the beginning and
I
the
think I
end.
did. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Okay, Nick, you take us here with story.
Story, yeah. So story's tricky, and I think a lot of it alludes to what they had to work with, but that's not an excuse. They have a lot of money. So I like mostly everything I saw. Once again, the Harfoots and the white cloaked folk and the stranger, right? That's like a toss-off bucket that I'll set aside for now. Focusing on everything else is net good. I liked the story that they're covering. I like the things that they're showing. It's the execution and perhaps like the writing and the revealing of it and how they go about presenting it to us. That's where like I have a lot of issues. So for example, really cool to see a little Belrog snippet, or even like the illusion or alluding to the fact like, oh, there's a Belrog down there. You can hear it rumbling every time there's an earthquake. And you know, like, oh, they're going for Mithril. There's definitely, this is how they find the Belrog. But don't show me the Belrog at the end of that episode. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like we as like me and Fran, we know where that story's going. That's cool. We know we're waiting for that. That's building up for us, and it's gonna be so cool in like season 3 when that thing comes out. Now we're just gonna show you right away, because they're trying to lure you two in. Maybe just you two. This is called you two for now. And to make that connection to Lord of the Rings, be like, oh, a Belrog, cool. Like, oh, I'm so excited. There's a Belrog, but we're not gonna do anything with it right now.
Remember that cool thing? Just it's never gonna come up again.
Yeah, right. Or way later. So to me, like they should have left that at me and Fran know that's coming. let it be a surprise for you all. Then it pays off really cool when it bursts through the wall and it starts just murking people. So I was really upset. I was happy to see it. So like that's the thing. I was happy to see the Balrog. I can never complain about seeing a Balrog, but I'm gonna complain about how when they showed me this Balrog. That was just unnecessary. The out deaths, right? Those are just like a big kind of like negatory for me. Where like is Isildur, spoiler alert, he ought not be dead because he's like a main reference character in everything else because he's like the king of like all the shit pretty soon. But now he got trapped in a burning building. He's dead. His dad's sad. All that. That's just empty. Like that's just a pointless part of the story. Like completely just throw like why? Just for that weird like primetime TV dun 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 like sad death. And he's like, oh, he's not dead. Like, yes, we like okay. Fran and I know that. You guys don't know that, but it's just weak. It's just weak writing. Yeah. But here's the thing. Are they just gonna say Isildur is dead? Like, did he just die? Like, then you're also kind of that's weird too. So I like seeing Isildur. I like the fact that he was introduced in the story. The fact that we're faking out his death for this season, that's dumb. Things like that I have issues with. So that's all a big part of where I really like the story we're in and what we're seeing, what they're showing. But it's just like how it's written and the way it's executed is kind of like cheesy. And it's like cheesy TV tactics. That's what it feels like to me, and not like that blockbuster like movie. Like, yeah, save it. We'll get there. Like, let some stuff set.
Yeah, take your time.
Take your time. And it just felt like they're not taking their time. We don't need that instant payoff for that Balrog. Really upset about that. But Balrogs are cool. They're flashy. For the Harfoots, that was like first half. It was like weak, and I was like, okay, it's just they redid this. They're redoing this. Like we get it. Like we see what you're doing here. The second half it got better because it was a little bit more intriguing. I was really like the end of the episode. It was like 6 or 7 where they like go off on an adventure finally. Like the leader of the Harfoots, the 2 kids, and like the mom. They go out to find the stranger. Like that was fun. I like that because they pulled that off in my mind. Like the hobbits are going off on an adventure to make a change in this big world. So I felt like that got pulled off really well. How well that pans out and plays out, not so much because they unfortunately have the luxury of having that moment and then following it up with the weird culty wizard people. So that was tough, and then they're like surrounding them and throwing rocks at them and like they're just idiots down there. So yeah, story.
Are you just gonna say it every time for each point you're giving it?
Man, yeah. What I say 3 times?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the story for like Elrond, like that, and his bro and the dwarves, like that was cool. But
Yeah.
the lost part where I get lost on that is Elrond's in the weird middle ground of like the elves want the Mithril. They want like him to go there because they got to build this forge, and that's a little murky to me, right? And I didn't really ever see the dwarves helping build the forge and the pacing on like how that was all. It was just really like business trips that Elrond was making to Moria, and then the occasional one time they went to Lindon, or where were they building the forge at?
They were building it in Eregion, but somehow they ended up in Lindor.
Yeah.
Like for the dinner with the dinner table, with the funeral table.
That was funny.
I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once again, like what they were doing was great. How it like all cohesively as a story fit together was like a disaster. Man, so maybe it's just like a even. I'll give it a 3.
3.
3
All
on the
right.
story. I want to give it 2.5 though, but I like story at least exist. I'd rather it be done than not done. So I'll take what I can get at this point. Because we're not getting another Peter Jackson trilogy, so
Nope.
we'll just park it. I'll park it at a 3.
All right. Well, Dan.
So I would say pacing is the biggest issue with me with that. Like, I feel like they could have taken their time. They were just trying to rush through everything, it seemed like. But one of the a couple things that were kind of funny to me, Sauron had plenty of chances to kill Galadriel, and he didn't.
He
Right?
doesn't want to. He wants a queen.
Right, but wouldn't he have known that she's maybe coming after him?
Yeah. Well, okay. So just to steal your moment here for a little bit, that
You're
was
good.
really cool. Even though how they got there was really choppy, but the moment where he was like basically proposing to her to be queen, that filled in the otherwise really kind of cringy weird moment in Lord of the Rings where she wigs out on Frodo and she's like, I was to be queen, and like blah, blah, blah. You're like, what is she doing? Like she's wigging out.
Yeah.
To me, that was like, once again with Elrond, but with that scene, I was like, wow, that so much fills in like where she's coming at from that scene. Like she was supposed to be like, she could have been Sauron's queen and like this like good that offsets the evil, and that worked so well. So maybe that's why I should keep it up at a 3. That alone, I was so impressed with. I was like, there we go. We need like that all the time, but continue.
Okay. Fair enough. The other thing that was kind of weird to me was Celebrimbor. Brilliant. You know, all his stuff that he made, you know, all that. He didn't know how to merge the metal together with the mithril.
The weird
Like-
part is he knew how. He just didn't think of it.
But it was
That's
such,
the weird thing.
I'm not like a metal forger, but like if
Metal writer, though.
yes, mediocre metal writer. If I just feel like he would have like figured that out. Like he wouldn't have had to been like he wouldn't have hold his hand through the process. He would have gotten there a little bit easier. I would. The story overall, I liked it. I can appreciate the journey, and that's ultimately what they're trying to do, is take you through a journey. Whether the pacing sucks or not, I mean, it is what it is. This one's kind of hard to rate.
It's got a duality about it. Like it's like both fantastic and like crappy at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like they have all the pieces. It's just like we don't know how to put them together.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of like evident. Like they knew what they wanted to do, but they were just like really, really crappy getting there.
So what do you give it?
I'll give it a 3.
All right. Fran, you look like you're chomping at the bit.
Oh, no. No. The story was rough. It was. It's so much like Nick said. The way they went about it was just so rough. Okay. So I kept thinking about this and I kept telling my husband this when we were watching it. Did you guys watch The Witcher? Did you guys watch The Witcher? Okay.
A little bit.
Okay, I only watched season 1, and this is primarily why. I was not aware that there was like 5 different timelines going on until like 30 seconds away from like the credits of the season finale. And like when she was like, they were running to get, and you were like, oh my God, like this is that girl. This is the baby from that scene. This is from that scene. Like it was so choppy. And this was not that bad, but it felt very similar. They knew too. They knew because in the last episode when who is it? Celebrimbor and Elrond are walking with all the scribes, and they're like hiding, and they're like, we've got 3 weeks to do 100 years worth of stuff. That was literally a direct, like, we know what we're doing, because according to the books, so they don't bring this up so that in what they had rights to, but the way Sauron actually learns from Celebrimbor is he disguises himself as an elf called Anatar. And Anatar spent 100 years with Celebrimbor, learning from him, learning his smith trade. So that's another thing too, as to why it doesn't make any sense, like you said, that Celebrimbor would not figure that out, and that they made Halbrand give him that, because that's literally the exact opposite. Anatar went to him because he was the best and was like, how do I like forge rings? And they like made the 16 rings of power together. That's another thing. I'm sorry. We're talking about rings of power, more than just the elven rings. There were 19 rings total. There are 7 for the dwarf lords and 9 for men. And all of those were made first. The 3 elven rings were made last. Where is the satisfaction of us seeing them forge those rings together? Like, we should have been able to see Halbrand and Celebrimbor be like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we had this for everybody? So we were robbed of that, in my opinion. And what are they going to do? Like, just show him making all these rings together in season 2? No, like,
it's actually the cold open. It's just a montage of Celebrimbor smacking things with his
he's
hands.
running down making rings.
Exactly. So I was, that was a whole thing. But yeah, they talk about taking 100 years and condensing it into 3 weeks. And I was like,
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So
You knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
I also thought it was weird, like how all this, I might be nitpicking, but it just kept coming up and it kept bothering me. How did we have like 4 episodes over the span of 3 days of Halbrand and her in Numenor, and yet like the elves and the dwarves were able to go back and forth from Moria to Eregion to Lindel, like in like an episode and a half. I'm like, oh, are they bringing in like, hovercraft? Like, what is happening? Like, how are they getting here and there?
It
so
did
fast?
seem like it was a quick walk, like through the forest to get to Moria.
No, like this
down the street,
like this, and I'm like, what is happening? Yeah. So
hey neighbor.
The time, won't you be
stopping in again? What's for dinner?
Yeah. I loved the story of Elrond and Durin. They were definitely my favorite part of this season, but it also kind of made me wish that they would play a little bit more into that. There was such a good relationship between the elves and the dwarves at this time, and actually, Celebrimbor made so in the Lord of the Rings, when they go and you see the doors of Mordor in the Fellowship, and it speak friend and enter, and it's real cool. Celebrimbor actually made that with a dwarf. Like, that's how close they were, and yet they acted like Celebrimbor had never even heard of the dwarf. It was like, oh, dwarves can make stuff.
They
so
didn't
I was
seem
like,
close in the show. Like,
no,
not at all, and yet they were. So I wish we could have seen that. I also, I was not a fan of the Harfoot thing. That was not anywhere in any of the books other than what they had rights to. But as far as the Second Age, there wasn't that. And I would have liked to have seen them take that. And I get that they were like a warm, comforting, like relief. But to me, you could have done that by showing the relationship with Celebrimbor and Navi, who he made the doors with.
But you need hobbits.
No, you don't need hobbits.
Gotta have.
You
hobbits.
don't. Not everybody needs a hobbit.
But that's what Bezos said. He's like, why are there no hobbits in this script?
Right.
Yeah. Come on.
Oh, yes.
I need SNL to make a parody of this where they're like, no, there's no hobbits in this scene, and they just throw them in. If you've seen the SNL parody of Game of Thrones, you'll understand that.
You need hobbits, you need wizards.
There it is. There it is. No, there's no hobbits in this scene. Just throw them in.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Oh, that is a great SNL skit.
Yes. My biggest angst, I guess, because that's the word that we're using, was that they tied the fate of the elves to Mithril. That infuriated me more than anything else in this entire show. That is not even just no. That, like, they were literally made by like the god of the universe. Like, he was like, they were like the favorites. How could their fate be tied to an element? Or like that would be like saying, well, I don't have gold, so I'm gonna die. Like, no, that is not logical. That does not make sense.
Is how the mithril veins got into the Misty Mountains accurate? Is that bit true? Where that elf
They didn't have rights to it.
Okay.
So, and to be fair, I do think that it's a little maybe that's in the writings that they haven't found yet. I don't know. But it's not very clear how Mithril was made.
I wasn't quite getting their explanation of how that was going to like, save them.
No.
What?
Because it's imbued with the light from that tree.
From the tree.
The elf, out of pureness of like his heart protected.
Right.
And it like that battle was so epic. Like, he just sent veins of awesomeness down into the mountains.
Which I don't think they have rights to know that, like Elrond's, but they allude to Elrond's father, so maybe they do. I don't know. He literally has a Silmaril, and he has a sky, or he has like a boat in the sky, and he literally like flies around and keeps the one of the 3 Silmarils. So if you want to talk about they need the light to survive,
what the heck is that?
that's
I don't
it.
even know what that is.
Okay, so the Silmarils are 3 jewels that were made from the light of the trees. When Melkor and the spider, I forget her name, it's not Shelob, but it's Shelob's like 1000th grandmother. They destroy the trees. She literally eats the trees. The spider does. And like Valinor is plunged into darkness and whatever, but Finrod had made the Silmaril. So there's a big thing about the Silmarils. Morgoth fought over them. It's a whole big thing. So in order to save one of the, to save something, again, this is all the Silmarillion, Elrond's father takes one of the Silmarils and like goes to Valinor and like pleads for life, and the Valar come in and save the day. But that's what he has to do because he wasn't supposed to go to Valinor because he was a mortal man. So he has to sail the skies with one of the Silmarils. The light that Galadriel gives Frodo in The Lord of the Rings, when she says, I give you the light of Elendil, I forget his name, something like that. Our most beloved star. That's what it is. That's literally Elrond's father. Elrond's father is a star that has the light of the Silmarils. So if you want to say that the elves need that to survive, well, it's in the sky. And they have the light. Clearly, they were able to capture the light. So why would they need Mithril?
So to give Amazon the benefit of the doubt, they had an awesome story written, but legal came in and redlined the life out of it and was like, no. No, you're okay. This is what we're left with. Awesome. Production starts tomorrow.
Yeah, it almost felt like they did. So I don't know.
It's like all the parts and pieces are there. It's just there's
they
a lot of
didn't-
red line that we didn't get, and they had to like make changes to make it even remotely connect.
Yeah, but it almost felt like you said, like they had no good way. They should have just merged it a little bit better. It's not like this was like on the editing floor. Maybe it was. I don't know. Like you said, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, like Dad said, they didn't need to rush it either. Like they could have taken their time with what they had and just kind of like weaved through it.
Yeah.
Instead, it just felt like the pacing of like
Plus
8 o'clock TV show.
You get to milk it for more episodes, more seasons. Like
Yeah.
Exactly.
We've got 5 seasons. Like, take your time.
and like so they're saying that the light from the tree like goes down the roots into
Yes.
the rock,
And like
Mhm.
crystallized.
and somehow that they can focus that rock back into the tree
Yep.
to
Yep.
preserve the. Okay, that makes
Yeah,
a little
magic.
more sense. Still is super weird, but whatever. It's Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings. What are you gonna do? So what do you give it, Fran?
I'm
Burn
gonna
it.
be.
Sink it.
I'll be generous.
0.
2.5.
Nice. Generous 2.5. I love it.
Generous
A
2.5.
solid.
I think
2.5.
that's pretty generous actually, because you're basing a lot of your stance on like some pretty hard evidence, hard writing, like
Yes.
the Bible. You have the writing, and then they're just like, yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
skip over some stuff, cherry pick like the good parts that look good on TV, Balrog, and let's go.
That
I will
Balrog.
say I really
Hobbits,
liked
wizards.
I also really loved the Elrond Durin story, and like the tragedy of Elrond telling him that or Durin telling Elrond that they won't help or whatever, was like just punch right to the heart. And also the scenes between Durin and his dad, so good. Like
Yes.
so those are some powerful father son king prince chats that were pretty cool to see. But yeah, so what do we got? What's the final score? 2.9. Wow.
Ouchie.
It's all right. I'm glad it got below a 3. It got like just below the middle.
Before we go too far, I'm just gonna defend the angst one more time of the elves.
Unbelievable.
Wow. Orlando Bloom. He was pretty angsty. Like he was pretty go. And I need to
he
shoot my
like
arrows
told
real quick.
jokes.
And I'm like really intense. Yeah, he had jokes in there. He wasn't as brooding as Galadriel in this show, but in general, they're kind of brooding people.
Like I understand
Yeah.
the reason for it, right?
They're taking
It's
them
just
to
like
Isengard.
That's
They-
literally what I thought of when you
they never let off the gas pedal, whereas like with Legolas, like he would
Yeah.
joke around with
They were
Gimli,
spurts,
and like
yeah.
he would joke around with other characters.
Right.
Or
She had zero jokes.
there were some like light-hearted moments with Legolas where like Galadriel's just like foot to the floor, like we're just doing 100 miles an hour angst through every single scene this entire series. Or
What
season.
this taught us was that every elf needs a dwarf.
Yes. I was just going to say Elrond
Yeah.
had
Elrond
Legolas.
had dirt.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's why he was great.
Exactly.
That's great.
We
great
just need to
point.
get her a dwarf, like get her and Disa together. Like, where's that meeting in season 2?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's get
Deesa's going to be
that.
like, let's chill out,
Let's
have a
sing,
meal,
Let's sing a song.
let's sing
Exactly.
a song.
Let's sing a song.
There's no orcs here, Galadriel. I promise you. There's a lot of very armed,
Good.
heavily armed dwarves. We're safe. Let's eat.
Yeah.
Yep.
So moving into the next category, which is action.
Action.
Action, yes. They did have some action in this series. Particularly, I don't know. I thought it was good. Like, the fight in the Southland Village was really cool. I like the setting of the traps, as unbelievable as it may be that a bunch of useless villagers would be able to fend off an orcish army with just the help of a singular elf warrior.
I would make the argument though that technically they did not.
Right. They killed.
They
Oh,
fought
that's
each
true.
other.
They killed each
They
other.
were evenly paired.
That is true. That is a big true point.
Yes.
I liked. Shoot, what was the other scene I was going to talk about? Holy crap! Literally just like vanquished from my memory. Oh, I liked the attempted escape from the pit, right? Of the elves. That was pretty cool. I think for the most part, the combat, like the choreography of the fight scenes, I really liked the like training Galadriel did in Numenor with like the young whippersnappers, where she took on like 3 or 4 at once. I thought that was a really cool little fight scene. Um, I overall, I really liked the combat. There were some things that like just visually kind of looked very CG, things that they had to do. But other than that, I was entertained by all the action that we had. 3.5. Fran, you're up. Bringing the circle back.
I really enjoyed the action, actually. I thought they did good. It was funny. It was the pit scene when, oh gosh. Well, was it when I think it was when the work started like eating the woman's stomach and she was like screaming. I looked at my husband and I was like, yeah. I was like, we're on a streaming platform and they want us to know it. Like, they're not playing.
Yeah.
And then clearly, I don't know. I've never been in, old time warfare, but like I vividly remember like how slow they were putting in the sword to everybody when they were in the tavern, and I was like, this is brutal, but like but I loved it. Like I was like, because like that falls into the character of an orc. Like they don't know good, they don't know bad, they're just killing machines. And we saw that to an extent in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but like they really drove that home. The orcs were amazing though, like 10 out of 10 for the orcs. I thought the fight scene with Halbrand was very good. That's kind of where you got your first glimpse, like, okay, maybe he's not just your average guy. And when I went back and rewatched it, I actually noticed he had this same like look of fury on his face when he went after the main guy that he had when he started shouting at Galadriel. Like you got the exact same like rage moment. And that's when I was like, oh yeah, there he is. That's where I appreciated the actor too. I was like, he knew, and he just kind of carried it through the whole way. So
nice.
Yeah. Action, I'm going to say for the action that was there, I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
Nice.
High
Dad.
score.
Yeah, I like the action too. It wasn't like chocked full of it. I would have loved to have seen more for sure. I liked the beginning when Galadriel takes out that snow troll. That was fun.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
That was like what really made me fall in love with her. Like she was just amazing as a character. Okay. I also like the trench fight with, I don't know how to say his name, Arondir. He fights the warg.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's probably when I like thought the wargs looked the worst.
Yes,
but the combat there, super cool
with the chain.
Yeah,
he was very cool in that. The action was pretty good. I did enjoy it. I'll also give it a 4.
Nice. Nicholas,
did you give it a number, Mike? I forgot.
3.5.
Okay. I do count the action against it to some degree because of the potential there could have been, and maybe what I have grown to like accept or want from like high fantasy Lord of the Rings kind of action. And there is that Harfoot cloaked people scene action that counts as an action scene. With like the fire, like where they're fighting them and trying to save the stranger.
Mhm.
That's an action scene, and it's like the worst scene in the whole show. So that's a problem. The orcs, well, the humans dress as the villagers dress as orcs attacking their own village. That bit was good. And I actually did enjoy the whole build up to that point where they're up in the tower and you see the torches kind of marching like through the valley. Like that was all really cool. And really, I just like that valley, like the whole anytime they're up in that tower and they're looking at that valley, really awesome. So that was a good build up. Unfortunately, I don't think it like was as like clean as I want it to be. It was cool and fun, but like it just kind of had that TV feeling. It didn't really hit that like blockbuster level for me that they could have hit for $500 million. Yeah. And then also, while they had the right idea to just basically recreate Gandalf showing up at Helm's Deep, cool, but like, like, you know, we came here with like 500 horses or something like that. And we're just going to ride across who knows where and just kind of crash into this little village and do its thing. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to have to suffer on the action for this a bit, unless other thing, I can't remember a lot of actionable things. Like there's cool bits mixed in there. Obviously, yeah, I did forget all about the Galadriel early scenes of her like fighting and stuff like that. So the action is clean when it's there. But I'm just gonna have to settle on a 3 for the action. If I want to be really rude, I'd give it a 2.5, but I'll give it a 3 as well. Yeah, I'll settle there. It could have been so much better. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There could have been more of it.
More of it, and just like better structured. What action they did have, I don't know if it was just to have it. Like half of it was just to have it. Others were just like kind of felt like really failed attempts. So if they're going to show the Balrog, they might as well make it fight something. Like, I don't know. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. I just remember that thing. We're never gonna talk
Never
about it again.
Never going to see it again.
Great. So yeah, final score 3.6. We're picking up the scores a little bit after a couple rough categories. Next up we have the world that was built here, and I think this one should go pretty quickly because we're returning to an already established world, albeit much earlier in its timetable here. But I think Numenor was super cool. Loved this. Kind of bleeds into like the aesthetics, but like the statues leading into it, just the fact that it was this just epic like island, I don't even know, a fortress almost, like really, really cool. I liked the wilderness scenes with the Harfoots. It was cool to get out in just some fields, out of a city or a town or a village, right? Because everything else takes place in a city or a little village. Wasn't like a huge fan. I'm just trying to. I'm going through like all the set pieces. I'm trying to like in my head here, like the open water scenes were kind of fell flat. I mean, I loved the mines, super cool. Just seeing the Dwarven area just bustling was really, really cool. I liked the elven areas. The place where they were in, like I forget the name of it, but it was the place with all the trees that seemed to be like in a perfect
Linden.
grid, like of planting, just straight lines any way you look. I loved the looks of that. Yeah, I'd say I don't, from at least my point of view, I don't think they did a disservice to the world that we were already familiar with. At the same time, with the exception of Numenor, I don't think they did much to like add to it. but Numenor did do a lot of cool things, I think, in my mind. So with that said, I'll give it a 4. It was also cool to see Mordor. Like Jeff, I
Yeah.
believe you were the one that mentioned that earlier.
Mhm.
So Nick,
Yeah.
on to you.
So yeah, the world building was really good, and how they approached it too, especially early on with like the bouncing around the map. That was something we didn't get as much in Lord of the Rings that they probably could have done. You'd have to be like kind of a nerd to like really kind of follow along like spatially where they're at in Lord of the Rings, but they did a good job like saying, here's Middle Earth, we're here, now we're here, now we're there, now we're here. And I just want to mention this. I don't know if it fits here, but it's going to have to because it's related to the world and the map. But the revealing of like when Galadriel figures out like the whole symbol she was like chasing down, that was cool. Just because that was a map and not a symbol, or
Yeah.
a mark that meant him. It was like it's literally it's a map of a place. Look at the map. That's Mordor, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. This is where it's going to get good. So places like Numenor, way zoomed out, got that big grand feeling. Love when that happens. That happened all the time in Lord of the Rings. Basically, everything was like that in Lord of the Rings. We saw the full Shire. We saw Moria in great detail. Everywhere in Lord of the Rings, we get that whole aesthetic. Those big shots. And that happened with like the Tower in the Southlands. Where it didn't happen, and I felt like they played it a little too safe, was in Eredor, Linden, and Moria in this show. Too many intimate scenes where we're just kind of like in a room or in like a small space setting. We didn't get that like Rivendell pan shot. We didn't get that like Shire pan shot. And like those are beautiful places over there in the world. And I would have liked to seen like a full Lindor. Like, what is this? Like, this is grand times before like the rundown third age that we see in Lord of the Rings. So I did wish there's a more of that, even though we did get plenty of it in new places, I suppose, that were drastically different, like Mordor. Mordor's much different in this. And actually, we saw a whole different part of Mordor. We saw like southern Mordor, which is green still in Lord of the Rings, because it's where they had to grow their food and all that crap. So, yeah, it's nice even split. I definitely give it a 4, just because, like you said, Mike, they didn't do it a disservice, but they could have went like They could have went full bore on this, and there's never really a reason to pull that back with the budget, with how good the world looks. Like we talked about aesthetic, like everything looked great. Like why pull back in any corner of this story? Like if anything, just wow us nonstop with the world. And mostly they did.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to knock off a point there just because I felt like they did pull their punches a couple times and a little much.
Nice. Dad?
Dad, I loved the world building in this. I feel like this is probably where they dropped most of their money. I really didn't have any gripes with it. Beautiful. I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Ooh, buddy. To add, the journey that Leaf takes to get to the Balrog, awesome. But that was the good part.
I will add something too, like outside of just like the physical locations and stuff. I really liked the society of Numenor, and like you said, the smithing guild,
Mm-hmm.
and like how they earned their crest or whatever, or really how I think it was like just trades across the board there. They had to like earn their crest to be like a part of it, right? I liked the kind of like pseudo political stuff going on with I'm struggling with character names here, but the brother and sister, like how the sister is like interning basically with whatever like governing body is going on here, and like the son is like, trying to earn his stripes as a sailor, right? I thought what they did showing what what is kind of close to everyday life in Numenor was really cool to just see. I
The
like
xenophobia, you like that?
Yeah, loved it. Just the raw hatred of elves was so cool. Now, I liked seeing the Harfoot journey. Like, I know I'm just hijacking and stealing Fran's time here, but I'm sure she'll have way more to add to this. But just seeing how like they're vagabonds, right? They're just move from place to place. I thought that was a really cool take on hobbits. Not that I really know anything outside of what we got in the trilogy, so the Shire looked pretty settled to me. So I don't think that's like an across the board hobbit thing that happens. It just must be this little pack, which is cool. Yeah, I don't know. Those small things I think helped the world category, in my opinion. But anyways, go ahead, Fran.
Yeah, I felt like the world was pretty solid. It kind of ties back to what I was saying with the aesthetics. And Nick, you alluded to what I had said too, and my feelings as far as Lindor and Eregion. We didn't get those big pan outs. These are areas that are gone in the Third Age. Like we don't see them anywhere in the Lord of the Rings. I shouldn't say that like they're gone, but like they don't have their place in the story. So this is their kind of like Numenor. This is their one chance to shine. And I wish that they would have let Eregion and Lindor shine like they did Numenor. Those are really my biggest kind of my little ticks, I guess, with that. The Southlands, I thought, like you said, they were average. Mordor was very good. I loved, I know it was just kind of a moment, but I really loved when they had Orodruin, Mount Doom, erupt, and just the way that took over. And they showed basically the creation of that world. And I thought that they did a really good job with that. So I give it a solid 4 out of 5.
Nice. I loved the blanket of ash.
Mhm.
So that was such a cool thing. And then like the reveal that the queen was blind. It's like it hasn't been ashy for some miles now.
Yeah.
I was like, oh snap, she's blind. Yeah, you said 4.5?
4.
4.
4 out of 5. Yes.
I think I asked. Nice. So that's a nice solid 4.1. We're just
Picking up.
After we got the characters and story out of the way, like the whole meat and bones of most stories. After we got that out of the way,
it looks good. It looks good.
Really,
looks
just
great.
Pumping out those numbers. So this last category, I'm gonna have Nick explain a little bit. It's a format, so this is kind of more of an abstract thing. So yeah, tell us what you're looking for here.
Yeah, so format would be it's a little tricky with this because it's a high fantasy thing, so it's kind of pigeonholed into only so many like ways you can do this. Usually, it's got a pretty straightforward. So it's kind of the idea of, is it a comedy? Is it an action show? Is it purely a drama? Is it like, all dialogue? Is it a mix of kind of like everything? Like we were saying earlier with like Lord of the Rings, like there's some really good humor and relief in there versus like, is that kind of withdrawn from this show? So it's like, what are the formats of basically entertainment and like of show are they applying here? Because they could have just went straight. They could have went horror, and are there, horror formats to it? So something in that vein. Like what's the style they're going for here? What kind of show is this? And even like Dad said, like how he said, I think this might have been off camera even, but he put his 12-year-old hat on. Like, is this for children? Is it for adults? So kind of that really wide sweeping like meta concept of format.
I mean, yeah, there's only one way to format this show. I think that weird quizzical look I just had was me thinking about my earlier comments about Star Wars and Andor and how like each series kind of has a different format and it works so well. But I feel like the genres of like space opera, like versus high fantasy, are so different that you can have that variety with the sci-fi stuff, and it's a lot harder to have that variety with the high fantasy stuff. With that said, like you have like the Game of Thrones stuff that's a lot of like political intrigue and stuff, and not so much with the magic and fantastical part of high fantasy, but like it shares that setting and can do some different things. I think format between a movie and a show, I think we've talked about on the podcast enough that, you know, we all kind of prefer the show format. Just gives you more time to tell a deeper story. Now what the creators do with that time is, you know, a whole other thing, but the format of a series versus a movie trilogy, I would sign up for a series 9 times out of 10 probably. So I'm cool with that. I like the serious tone, you know, except for, you know, of course the Harfoots add the levity, but even with the angst, I think it's telling like a somewhat serious story anyway, so it needs to have that tone. So I think the format's fine. The execution is another story, but I'd give the format a 4, I guess. Fran, did you go after me last time? Is it back to you?
Back to her.
Yeah.
All right. It is.
What do you think, Fran? This is a tricky category.
It is. So, yeah, forgive me if I'm lacking a little bit because this was like the weak area in my notes. Gosh, I guess I think what they are trying to do is they are trying to do a drama action. I do think that they're doing very well with the drama part. Again, like we talked with the action, it's good. We've got 5 seasons. So I know that they have time to develop. But again, I would have liked to have seen more action. Also, like knowing what I know, I'm also kind of like looking for little hints, which they did a good job. I'm looking for little moments of like political and stuff like that because Numenor is very political. It's very much in this not civil war, but like this civil rival of the faithful versus the Kingsmen. You know, this desire to be immortal, to, you know, they envy the elves, and yet you've got the other that, and so, you know, that envy turns into jealousy and turns into this hatred of the elves, and then you have the others that are faithful to the way things were and to remembering all that. And we saw moments of that, but I wish that we could have seen more, because I do think that needs to come into play in order to truly tell the story of Numenor. And it's such a rich vein for a storyline. And they've done well with it. And I understand that we have 5 years to develop it, but that political side to me could have been just a little bit more developed, especially because sometimes those scenes felt kind of kind of felt fake, like when they were all like all of a sudden like chanting like after Farazan had made his speech, and they were like, and he's like, everybody gets a beer. Like, I'm sorry, please tell me, like,
Yeah, what are we doing here?
what do we do exactly? Like, what do we? No. Like, tell me the last time a political leader in a show or real life ever did that. Never. Like
Numenor.
Numenor, exactly. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5.
Dad.
This is definitely a tricky one. I think they were going for like somewhat of an action adventure type thing. Although I feel like they at some moments took themselves too seriously and angsty. I really don't have much for this topic. I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
Fair. Mike, you're muted.
Dang, clearing my throat trying to save you guys, and then I forget. Which it could be argued that I was still saving you guys for you not having to hear my take or voice. But no, for an action adventure, I feel like it was lacking both in action and adventure.
Like that's what they were.
But yeah,
like,
that's
trying
definitely
to go for.
Yeah. I totally could see that. Yeah, I
along
feel
with
like,
some other missing elements to whatever they were trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's good you pointed that out, though. So I think you're right. All right, so Nick.
Yeah. So, like you said, Mike, this one is tricky, especially because there's not very many ways to spin this, especially Lord of the Rings. We all kind of have like an expectation that this is going to do a lot of things well, do like 2 things really well. And like Lord of the Rings really, like, it had so much in it, right? There's some political stuff, there's like some family drama stuff. But like at the core of that was an adventure, and it was full of action, right? It was an action adventure journey. So my issue with the format of this show is it doesn't really kind of settle on a format. It is kind of all over the board here. And maybe, like Fran said, over 5 seasons, that will kind of develop and become a little bit stronger. But, and like you said, Mike, about the format of a show versus a movie, you know, and how much we've talked about this feels rushed, right? And they could have taken their time. I feel like they could have taken their time and really reformatted each season, how they approached it overall, because really just feels like a mixed bag. It was like a ton of stuff, and it doesn't have a like consistent format outside of the attempt to be just kind of like an 8-hour, well, Lord of the Rings is 12 hours,
Yeah.
you know, but even then, like it's the same length, if not it's shorter than Lord of the Rings, and it doesn't like dial in on like a specific format in my mind, other than like attempting to do a lot of different things. And Fran made a good point. Like they did kind of linger in Numenor for like 3 days, 3 episodes. And they started to go down that like political intrigue. There's this, you know, all this conflict there, but then they just leave. And they're just gone. And yeah, to me, it suffers because Lord of the Rings, to it's even to the point of being made fun of, like it's just a lot of walking, right? That's the format. Like that's the format they went with. Like
Walking
this is going to
sim.
focus on, it's a walking sim, like it's a walking adventure with action baked in there, and a lot of adventure. Everyone's on an adventure. Not everyone's like quite on an adventure in this. We have a lot of people that are just kind of like stagnated, and just kind of like lingering. So yeah, because it was such a mixed bag, I'm gonna have to give it a 3 there on the format. They really could have tightened it up, polished it up, right? Go hog wild on the format of just being a world builder and just kind of tell us a history of it. Like, don't dramatize all these characters. And like, there's a lot of baked in artificial drama in my mind, right? Whether it's the whole speech and everyone gets a beer, all the way to the fake out deaths of Isildur. in those weird moments. So it's just like, once again, what are we doing here? Let's dial it in, tighten it up, and like make something really, really great. Yeah, that's format. It's a bonus category to get your last attempt scores out to either bring it down or build it up.
Yeah. And yep, we finish up with a 3.6 here with the format category. And just a larger like scope. This is kind of, we haven't like reviewed a series yet like this, or like a movie with like a rating system like we have a game or two so far. So much like our game reviews where we kind of have like a rubric that we use for each game, I think this is probably the rubric we'll use going forward with a series or a movie review. So while the format category isn't probably as interesting as it might be for maybe other reviews we might have down the road, I still think it was a good one to talk about for this, even though we kind of have an expectation with Lord of the Rings and high fantasy in it of itself. But all of our categories are done, and I did the math. Our final overall, the official Showboys rating of Rings of Power Season 1. Are you ready for this? It's going to blow your mind. 3.5.
That's pretty strong.
Slightly
Right.
above average.
Mhm.
And if it wasn't for the aesthetic,
in
this
the
would-
world.
this would have been below average. So are you
I think-
guys like, does that seem like a pretty accurate representation of the rating that
I
you
feel like-
maybe had in mind coming into this?
I feel like it's pretty generous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very clear where they put all their energy and time into was world building and aesthetics to make it look as beautiful as possible, so we would be distracted by all the crap.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think honestly, that is what kept me coming back. I mean, that's what
I mean,
kept me
it
watching.
was pretty amazing.
That's the
So
tough part
it-
about
it
this.
served its
There's a lot of
purpose.
there's a lot of things that are just like insanely frustrating and just face palm like through it, but then it's like I'm still watching it because I still need it.
Yeah, right.
I feel like it would be, that's about where I feel like it should settle, even though it does feel a little generous when you like start thinking about all the bad moments. You still have to remember like the good it's doing. Like there's some really great stuff about it, but that's why like it's not getting over a 4. Like I just can't do that to it. But also I wear to give it a 2, because that'd be doing a big disservice to just the other categories that scored well.
Yeah.
So
Any final thoughts for you, Fran, as the resident Lord of the Rings expert?
I mean, what's each person's individual average? Do you know that?
I mean, that would take a
So-
little bit more math, but I'm sure somebody could figure it out.
I'm on it.
Yes.
I really just want to know Fran's. Like, I think Fran's is like on the lower end
It probably is.
average.
Fran gave a 4.5,
4.
2.5, 2.5, 4, 4, 4. So
Oh,
I would
wow.
say maybe Fran's might be the highest out of all of us.
Well, okay, so then
3.4.
this is a good
3.4.
retro on like our categories. It may, maybe we need a little bit more harshness on the character section. Like maybe that needs to be broken out a little bit more.
I mean, I got a
Yeah.
2.5.
Not a lower score, but like more categories to like
Mm.
hit that harder, because maybe
Yeah.
we were a little heavy on like the world and the aesthetic. Maybe those should have been like 1. Maybe
Yeah,
our categories
true.
aren't balanced well.
Yeah.
I would make the argument, at least for this particular one, that we could have done like a true character, like the characters that were original to the Tolkien, and then like the added characters, like what Amazon added. because that truly probably would have made a little bit of a difference. Well,
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know. There's some
It's
pretty
tricky.
bad made up ones. But there were some very good ones too, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I think like in the threes is like a fair thing because
I do.
we all watched it. We're all gonna watch season 2 most likely. Season 2 is the one that's gonna either get it to a 4 or bring it below a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think slightly above average. That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know this is a question burning on everyone's minds right now. And that is how does Lord of the Rings of Power compare to Game of Thrones House of the Dragon? We have 2 people here on the panel. I'm going to call this a panel because that sounds official. Who have watched Game of Thrones and House of Dragon. We have one person who's watched 2 episodes of House of Dragon. How many
Yep.
have you finished, Dad?
1.5.
1.5.
1.5 episodes of House of Dragon. And then we have one person who hasn't watched any of either, but their spouse has watched all of both.
All of both. And my For You page somehow on TikTok is like littered with everything. So like I know what happened and I didn't even watch it. I'm like, oh,
Nice.
I got
Nice.
this. Yeah.
So now we have to lean on our House of the Dragon / Game of Thrones expert, Nick. And just real briefly, because we're like 2.5 hours into the episode already.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Eh.
Well, like how do you compare these two? Can you even compare them? Like what's going through your mind here?
So at first glance, you're like, it's not even fair really to compare them because they are 2 very different things. But at the same time, it's too coincidental how it all lines up, right? We have 2 series that ran simultaneously, heavy overlap. I think Lord of the Rings was fully contained within House of the Dragon in runtime. We have both being prequels to very successful either movie or other show, right? So they have predecessors. They both run with the previous show's tagline, The Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, and then you just add the new thing to the end of it. I call House of the Dragon like mid fantasy, and then Lord of the Rings is true high fantasy.
Nice.
So there's just too many things that are running in parallel here for them to not be compared. It's just an easy thing that has to be done. Yeah, and if I could give House of the Dragon, without like doing a whole review on that, at broad glance, especially compared to Rings of Power, like it's a 5.0, like it's a 4.9. It is robustly more powerful in every aspect. Maybe it gets docked some points on action for what could have been. It could get docked some points a little bit on world building, because maybe Rings of Power did a slightly better job world building when it comes to like, it's tough. It's really tough. The show's just like, it's just S tier polish. They know what they're doing. Like Fran said at the top of the episode, with what they had to work. Like that's the other comparison. Like they are working from the same type of source material, or should be at least,
basically,
right?
like history books, adapting it into a show. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just the crazy thing why you cannot compare these two, because they are literally like identical on paper.
Yeah.
The 5 things they are. But
I think I want to agree with Fran that it's like kind of not a fair comparison though, because like Amazon is adapting material they don't have the rights for, so they can't even like use it as source material. Whereas, luckily George, he's still kicking, even though, we're waiting for those books to come. He's still there to like advise and consult, and like they have the actual book that they're able to pull from, and they have the author still there to like ask questions for guidance on like how things should happen and stuff. So, but yes, go ahead, continue.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, real quick, because
Yeah.
again, I'm the one that doesn't know anything about this. But didn't he already write this? The Dance of the Dragons, isn't that a fully completed book?
Yeah, or histories of.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like they have everything that they need right there at their disposal. Yeah.
Yep, and enough wiggle room to blemish a little bit and do their own thing because it is a histories.
Yeah.
Which is
I've
always
heard a lot
fun.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like technically they don't do anything that's wrong. It's technically, arguably, as far as the history is concerned,
The
we
way
don't
it was
know.
documented.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as that main historical point happens, what happens in between, how you get there,
Right.
whatever.
And for another like point of reference, when you talk about like bang for your buck, House of the Dragon was 20 million per episode. Rings of Power was 60 million per episode.
Mhm.
So just the polish,
Yeah.
from beginning to end, like everything makes sense, everything's purposeful, everything's clean. Outside of like two post-production mishaps that they fixed really quickly, the show continuously improves on itself episode to episode. So something you might have complained about in episode 2, if they do it again, they fixed it by episode 6. So yeah, like it's the obviously it's the HBO polish. It's the format, right?
Yeah.
It's for adults. It's the mature version of it. It doesn't have any like levity while it's fun with the Hardfoots. Like we can do without it. Like why can't the format of this just be like orcs, Mordor, Southlands, war, right? Don't try to do the Hardfoots in like season 3. I don't know. The same thing with the timelines. Like those don't all have to be running at the same time. That's why I'm kind of feeling like they need to pick something and stick with it. House of the Dragon picks something and just does it like to the max, and it's awesome.
It's
Yeah.
totally
Go
different tier,
Right.
And I would say, like, to your point, they don't have to rely on the world building for House of the Dragon because they've got a solid story. They've got solid characters. Like in just the episode and a half that I watched of it, they're taking their time.
You don't have to worry about taking the time,
right? No one's over angsty. The characters are believable. And I haven't watched that much. It's awesome.
I think they also, I mean, the world that was built in the Lord of the Rings books and the trilogy we got, I mean, was
amazing,
immaculate and immense and deep and vast, right? But I think also what Game of Thrones or what House of the Dragon can like rely on in terms of world building is like the material that's coming off of, or that world that it's in was more recent than, the trilogy or the books even, so like they can rely on the fact that everyone who's watching this was a fan of Game of Thrones, and that was just like a handful of years ago. So everyone remembers the world of Westeros, right? So like they don't have to spend time like reintroducing or like. Plus, House of the Dragon takes place in like 2 or 3 places. Like it does. There's not a lot of moving around between, really King's Landing and like Dragonstone. Is that the?
Yeah, and no, you're right. And that's the other thing. Like that's the thing about taking their time. Like it was really cool and like saved it because Rings of Power jumped everywhere, hit a bunch of awesome stuff, zoomed way out. But the problem is it's too all over the place. Like I know in House of the Dragon, from episode 1 to the episode 8, they slowly just open the veil to what's happening. They're not rushing it, right? While that was cool in Rings of Power, that worked, but it didn't work with everything else.
Yeah. Plus, like, here's a question: do you prefer your fantasy to be chock full of dragons, or like, I don't know, elves and wizards like Gandalf? not saying like Game of Thrones has, you know, their form of sorcery and magics and stuff, but it's like, you know, pretty like minuscule compared to the Lord of the Rings take on fantasy. But Game of Thrones House of Dragons has like literal dragons.
100% dragons.
So rad. What is there one that you prefer? Are you in both camps? Don't care. Open
me?
to anyone.
Oh.
Yeah.
I would just say I like the reason Lord of the Rings is high fantasy because like they have elves, they have dwarves, they have, you know, a lot of fantastical stuff going on, and that works for it. But what I like about Game of Thrones is that stuff's more guarded. It's more exclusive. Like dragons are what's fantastical. They're not overused very strategically. And there isn't just like wizards rolling around being OP. When executed right, like Peter Jackson was able to do the high fantasy, but it still felt guarded because it was still about, maybe that's a third age too. Like it's about mortal men fighting these wars and these fights, and the fantastical stuff is kind of like on the fringes. Whereas like this in the second age, maybe like they should bring that more to the forefront, and because the elves are more prevalent and things like that. But obviously execution's everything.
I would make the argument, though, that really they did a disservice to the elves. I mean, we talk about it being high fantasy, but we didn't see one bit of elven magic this entire season.
Right.
And we talk about the wizards and the magic, but they're actually incorrect in doing that. The wizards didn't come until the third age. The second age was truly marred with war, and if they would have stuck to the material that they should have obtained rights to or whatever, I'm not going to act like I know. There isn't a reason that it couldn't have looked more like the House of Dragon. Reading it and knowing what I know, and then having Marcus tell me about House of Dragon or seeing it, it should have looked more like that. Not trying to say that like they're similar, like they could have done their own thing, but it could have been that more mature audience. It could have been, you know, like I watched Lord of the Rings as a 12-year-old. It came out when I was 12, 13, and 14. I went and saw it in the theaters every time. I wish it kind of would have matured with me. It felt like it's still that childlike, okay, we're gonna not dumb it down, but we're gonna put a cap on it. Whereas they shouldn't have. That wasn't what the story was in the second age. And, you know, if you're trying from a marketing standpoint, if you're trying to get your audience, look at what Game of Thrones did. Look at what House of Dragon was doing. Adapt to that. I guarantee you almost every person that enjoys House of the Dragon and enjoys Game of Thrones watched Lord of the Rings as a kid, and their taste has matured. And in my opinion, the show, Amazon should have tested the climate and realized like that's where we are, and they should have matured it with it, because it's a more mature, exactly. It's a more mature storyline that they picked anyway. Why wouldn't you do that?
Very valid points.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Good format points.
Yes. So yeah, that there you go. That's how it compares. There's actually, like Nick said, I didn't even realize all the similarities of how things kind of line up. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think not that maybe like saying that it saddens me to say this, but like I held Lord of the Rings in such high esteem, and like that trilogy is just so good that it like saddens me that House of the Dragon is better than this series, because at minimum I think they should be on par with each other in terms of quality and story and doing what they do. But I mean, that's not a knock on House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones or anything like that. It's just what I was hoping and expecting out of Rings of Power, to like be back in that world of Middle Earth. But anyways, we're gonna wrap up here because we're getting close to bedtime. I'm getting pretty sleepy. Thanks,
Baby.
Fran, for coming on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I apologize for laughing every time you took a drink, because combined with the blinds, the size of your mug literally makes you look like you are a hobbit.
Wow, you scooted
Like,
back and it's just
I
doesn't
scooted
help.
back.
It's insane. But thanks for coming on and doing this with us. It was fun. It was a blast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I hope work isn't weird now that you've entered this portion of my life. No, I'm just kidding.
You're going to act like you didn't bring this portion of your life
Yeah,
into
we
work
already talked
before.
about all this crap anyways.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad, for coming on and being here with us.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to having you on in the background as our producer every week. That'll be fun. And yeah, other than tune in next Thursday, we have the Chosen Companion series releasing Tuesdays audio version and Wednesdays the video version on our YouTube channel coming out. We have Dungeons and Dragons over on Twitch on the 13th. That'll be fun. Make sure you check out showboysmedia.com because we have session recaps posting. We have one went live for session 2 yesterday. Then we have session 3 going live on Monday. A fun story might tell the backstory of one certain scepter that maybe somebody in our party has obtained. That story will be releasing on Wednesday, and then our session 4 recap on Friday, and then right into Sunday we'll have our stream. And then you just want to follow us on Twitch anyways, because I stream occasionally throughout the week. You guys have anything else you want to say? If not, we're just gonna get out of here. All right, sounds like we're getting out of here. All right, see you next week. Subscribe. Bye.